Welcome to the 15th episode of the Friday Nightmares podcast. Tonight, we will be talking about back to school because it's almost that time, depending what school will look like for people come this September.
Yeah, no
But
kidding.
I am one half of your hosting team, Heather Powell, coming to you from Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And with me is...
Mr. Smoke Show Crawford himself. Back from his week away and in the middle of nowhere. And yes, I did find a book covered in flesh. I did read it, not out loud.
Of course.
But got some pretty interesting information from that.
Oh, yeah? What did you find out?
Well, I found out how to summon some demons.
You just go on dating apps for that.
Yeah, right. Plenty of those out there.
Plenty of demons out there that way. But it does look like you had a fabulous time. Scott made sure to share his pictures and would constantly tell people how much he needed this vacation. Like the most whitest thing Scott could say, he said. I almost waited for him to have a Starbucks and a case of beer first in his hand. And then say, let's do a group shot. Let's do a silly one. Well, he was up in the cottage in the woods.
And yeah, everyone, I kept getting that message from Heather going, you are the whitest person ever.
Every time. I so needed this vacation. Like we all don't need a vacation, Scott. Thank you for rubbing it in our faces. And then there was one part where Scott took this shot where he was on the dock and it was his bathing trunks that he was facing out and he was taking this beautiful shot of the lake that he was staying on, as well as he got some of his swim trunks. Like, it was actually a really nice photo. And one of our friends wrote that it wasn't his fan-only page, and I was dying. So,
oh yeah, my OnlyFans page.
your fans-only page. And I feel like Scott needs to start one now. Fans-only page.
I'll see, with those sexy legs, I mean, how could I not, right?
Like, you got to be showing the goods. You could be baking with your beard and shit like that. Like,
have a little apron on, but nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we need to really, figure out how we're going to get more listeners. And right about now, I feel like, when you're working with a 10, like Smoke Show Crawford, you gotta know where the goods are coming from. But yeah, you went tubing too, and you're a little sore because you found out.
I kicked my own ass, as, what was it, Jim Carrey would say in Liar, Liar.
Right.
I'm kicking my own ass. Do you mind?
And didn't you find a cabin in the woods?
We actually did, yeah. This abandoned cabin that I think the last time it was visited, I think there was a date for when the power was on, and it was 2013.
Oh,
and
wow.
This place was freaking creepy. It looked like a time capsule because we weren't able to get all the way inside. We were able to walk into the.
Must be the first time you said that.
Oh, damn!
I meant that as a compliment, but anyway.
Oh my gosh! But
Scott's a little worse for wear this morning, but this evening, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah. Oh boy, but yeah, that cabin was pretty cool. We were looking through the windows, and it looked like a time capsule from the 70s, all 70s furniture and old school appliances. But then, the creepy part was there was a cage hanging from a tree, and
trapper's cage.
Yeah, it looked like a trapper's cage, but it was the size of a you could probably fit a medium-sized animal in it, or I was joking, a human baby. That
what
was
about a Scott? Could you fit a Scott in it?
You could probably fit Scott's head in there.
Oh man, I need to get me one of those. Awesome. Awesome. So you had a good time, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I had a blast. I was sore as hell. Been out, pretty much didn't wear a shirt almost the entire week, except for maybe a little 5
fans
hours.
only page, people. Don't you want to see shirtless smoke shows, Scott Crawford?
That's right. And actually, no, speaking of smoke show, while up north, got to give a shout out to Darren Wilson from the Psychosemantic cast for the awesome Photoshop that he did of
that was
me.
Pretty awesome. Yeah.
I shared it to our podcast page, but yeah, he Photoshopped my face over was it Burt Reynolds on the Deliverance poster, and put
awesome.
Smoke Show Crawford as the actor name.
So Scott just got attacked by his cat. It was pretty funny. As he's trying to tell the story, the cat was basically all over his face.
Yep, crawling all over me.
All that pussy all over the place. So I'm antagonizing Scott extra bad tonight, or because he partied it up with another podcaster last night. I don't know if you want to reveal who that podcaster was.
Oh, of course I will. Yeah, our buddy, our friend Adam Thomas from the Double Edge Double Bill podcast.
And they were double fists and drinks last night, and
oh my God.
Poor Scott's feeling a little. He's not an experienced alcoholic like me, so he doesn't. He can't handle his liquor like Pound and Powell can.
Pound and Powell, I love that. That's gonna be your nickname for the show now.
Yeah, Pound and Powell. I'm sure everyone will assume that's alcohol.
Yep.
Excellent. I'll take what I can get. You know what?
Or Double Fist and Powell.
Double Fist and Powell, even better. I can't wait for my fans only page. I think I'm gonna get more patrons than you are.
Oh, that's already that's a given.
But yeah, you guys had a good time last night.
Yeah, we had a blast. Because we found out we only live about 45 minutes away from each other. So I went out to his place on his birthday last month, and hung out with him. And then, yeah, he came over, crashed over here last night. He brought 50 beers, and when he left this morning, we had 9 beers left. And that was between me, him, and my roommate, Tim. And then we had...
formerly the podcast by the cemetery.
Yes, yeah, my former co-host.
No.
And... we also had, margaritas and then a couple shots too. So it was, Scott was wasted last night.
You were shot. Everybody!
I was more like shot, stumble to the floor.
Yeah, you know what? You need to it's good. You need to start training for when you come up here. I don't want no lightweights up here. So
I got a party Canadian style apparently.
Yeah, well, speaking of Canadian style, I met my own podcaster.
That's true, you did.
Mm-hmm. So, as many Exploding Head Patreons are aware of, Christian and myself met up on Friday night. We did an exchange of drugs. No, just kidding. We did an exchange of I have a Raptors mask that I got, and I'm a big Raptors fan, so it's Christian, and I got a bunch of them. I'm actually going to go see him again because I got some extra ones. So I'm going to anyway, we did that, and we exchanged he gave me Night of the Creeps, which was really, really nice of him to do that. He didn't have to. And awesome. I hung out with him and met his kids, and yeah, he's a cool dude. Like, you know, when you meet someone who's been doing podcasting for as long as he has, it's really humbling. You know, I joked with him that I felt like I was meeting a celebrity, and he laughed, but I actually did feel that way. Because,
yeah, I can see that.
You know, he really is larger than life, funny, and he's a good looking man. Like, he is like in his mid 40s, and he doesn't look older than 35. And
yeah, I was gonna say, because he looks like about our age.
He is just, you know, a joy to be around. We will probably get together again. I'm really hoping I can guest on TGIF, his TGIF for 13, a show that he does with Vince. And we'll probably hang out. And if Scott comes up here, we'll go out for drinks.
Yeah, I can't wait.
And chill. So that was kind of my probably my highlight since Scott's been gone. I also caught up on some movies. The movie theaters opened here, and I saw a couple new releases in the theater. So first time I've seen a movie before Americans have in cases. So it's been a pretty like cool time, and we're coming to the end of August and getting ready to go back to school, hence our topic. But really, Scott is the one that's had more party stories and more going on than me, which is weird.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've kind of like reversed roles here, because like usually you're the one talking about how you're going out and partying and doing this, like, but you did go out a couple times on the weekend and like.
Oh yeah, well I go out every weekend.
Yeah,
I go out all the time.
Like, this is just new because it's like, oh, Scott did it for once.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you were away for a week up north, right? And that's a pretty awesome opportunity. So, you know, while the cat's away, the mice will play. So I got into some more 2020 watches, and I want to talk about insert hair flip here, my 2 theatrical releases that I saw in the theaters. So the first one is
jealous.
I'm considering a horror film because I do believe it's similar to Joyride, for those of you that have seen Joyride from 2011. But it's Russell Crowe, and it's called Unhinged. Now, I don't know if Scott has had a chance to see a preview to this or not. Have you seen it?
Nope, I've not seen a preview for it, and I'm kind of curious to see what will happen here in the U.S. with this movie. Like, is it going to come to like some of the theaters and eventually VOD? I have no idea.
You haven't seen a preview? What a loser.
I know, right?
You just didn't want to tease yourself. It was just too
Right, exactly.
painful.
Make myself feel bad.
You'd be like, oh, I couldn't even watch this movie if I wanted to. Because that's what you sound like. That's an accurate
Oh,
description of definitely what Scott sounds like.
wah,
Wah,
wah.
wah. No, great movie. Russell Crowe is in it. It's in in a nutshell, it's about road rage, and this woman, she pisses off Russell Crowe at a very innocent thing that I think most of us have done on the road before, and it's a balls to the walls movie. There is some graphic kills in this movie, stuff that I did not expect walking into this film. I thought it was going to be more of a thriller. Within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, I'm like, nope, this is a slasher. And the only difference is the dude who's doing it, and you're just in it for this ride. And it is definitely a movie I probably wouldn't have gone to the theater if things were running normally. So if there were other theatrical watches, this probably would have gone to to the side, because I would have chose something else. And
Right.
I think they knew that, and that's why they released it now. And I'll talk more about the theater experience later, but it was almost sold out for COVID status. So, there is a limited amount of people that can go into the theater at any given time. And it's short. Like, I was in the theater at 9, it started at 9, and we were done by 10:30. Like, in and out,
That's
right?
nice.
Now, mind you, there's not a lot of previews right now. There's not a lot of commercials because there's not a lot of people going to the movie theater. So a lot of companies aren't putting money into advertising, but it was definitely a ride. The second one I'm going to talk about is Peninsula, and this is such my bragging right. I can't express how good I feel that I've been able to see this movie and tell other people about it who haven't seen it.
Yeah, because I think it just came out this Friday in the U.S.
And I not that I wish ill on my U.S. brothers and sisters at all, but in Canada we always get the short end of the stick.
Yeah, you do.
Always get the later releases. We always, there's times where I still can't find Ghost Hunters. Like, I still can't.
Ghost Killers versus Bloody Mary.
Yeah, whatever it is, Ghost Killers versus Bloody Mary, or whatever it's called. But this came out. I went and saw it in 4DX, which is basically ride motion, which was insane.
I still want to experience that.
Oh, I'll take you when you come up here. It was, and there's some crazy chase scenes in this, and it is nuts. So basically, the premise, it's taking place 4 years after Train to Busan, and it's looking at what the world looks like, and I will leave it at that. There is definitely some characters that you get introduced to early on. You think they're going to be the main characters, and then stuff switches around, and there's new characters introduced, and there's definitely some cheese in this, and they definitely made it more Americanized because they speak English 50% of the movie.
Oh, really?
So even though it's subtitled, there's a lot of English speaking that occurs, which is fine, but definitely made this one more Americanized than they did for Train to Busan, in my opinion.
Okay.
You guys can, yourself and other people can be the judge of that in the States when you get to watch it.
Yeah, and apparently, sorry to interrupt. But apparently I just found out today that I guess the that Peninsula was released in theaters today or Friday here in the US and was originally supposed to be the same day as VOD. Well, now it's looking like the VOD release is not till October.
Wow.
So I probably won't be seeing this till October.
I feel really bad for you.
It sucks,
I actually do. Like, I think that really sucks. I was in the theater. No, I went on a Tuesday night, and I was one of 8 people that were there. And I have no fear going back to the theater, and we'll talk about this later. And I think it's very important that we support the theaters. I feel very strongly about this for multiple reasons. And I went twice that week, and I may go again this weekend because New Mutants have been released. And I'm not a huge comic book fan, but you know what? I will go watch it. Tenet is being released here as well, and I may go see that too.
What is it?
Tenet TV.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan film.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I heard New Mutants, like, just from the trailer I seen a long time ago. It looks kind of horror movie-ish in a way too, so it kind of fits.
It looks very like comic booky.
Yeah.
Which usually I'm kind of burnt out on comic books, but I'll be
Hmm.
honest, I'm just going to support the theater.
Oh yeah. Well,
Like
I would be too.
if I have a slight interest in it, like I won't go watch SpongeBob, but
Like I thought you were watching.
I know you were teasing me about, but you were just jealous because I was at the movie theater and you weren't.
I was.
But if I even have a slight interest, I'm going. So these two movies, highly recommend. When my American brothers and sisters get a chance to watch Unhinged or Peninsula, worth it. 100% both are worth it. Both are worth it in the theater if you can get out to the theater to see it. It will enhance the experience for you for sure.
Yeah. One of these days, it will happen for me again.
One of these days it will happen. And then the next one we have both seen.
Nope.
No. Okay, it's just me. I saw The Animal Among Us. Now, this was a very much a low-budget film, and it basically takes place. It was a screener that we got. I don't believe it's been released anywhere yet, hence why it's a screener. And it takes place at a campground where there is a suspected killer or something in the woods, an animal attack or whatever, and the camp was condemned because of it, and the killer was never found. And there's a writer that writes about this campground, and then he gets kind of called to the campground. So there's a whole bunch of character development that goes on, very much like a slasher. I saw it a couple of weeks ago now because obviously Scott was gone, and I watched 2020 movies to try to beat him.
And you did.
And I did. But it was pretty good. I think that it's definitely worth the rental for like $2.99. Currently, right now, it's available on Google Play, Prime Video, Tubi, and Apple. So my apologies, it has been released. So you definitely can watch it. It's 90 minutes. It's not long. I don't think there's really anyone in here that anyone would really know. I think maybe people that have had small roles and stuff like that before. But good little slasher, entertaining, worth a watch.
Nice. That's one I'm gonna be eventually checking out because we both got the screener. I just haven't had a chance to watch it.
Awesome. It is low budget. I will make sure I put out there it is low budget. So don't be expecting some crazy effects and stuff, but it's not bad at all. It's entertaining. Now, have you seen She Dies Tomorrow?
Nope, that's another one I need to watch.
Oh my goodness.
Well, this is what happens when you like play catch up and while I'm gone on vacation and like you watch a bunch of movies I haven't had a chance to.
Well, She Dies Tomorrow is a 2020 film. It is 84 minutes in length. And basically, it talks about the impending fear of death and the social construction of how we view death, and kind of the build up to it. And it's a little bit of a psychological film as well as a sociological experiment of how people communicate with each other. It's a very, very dialogue heavy, character driven watch. I'm not even going to say it's a slow burn because there's no real payoff. There's nothing that happens at the end there's this huge climax. It's basically just a journey that you go on with a couple of characters as they deal with this idea of death and the concept of death. And I really connected with this movie because for me, I used to be very afraid of death and would worry about it all the time. And like every day I'd be like, well, maybe tomorrow I'm going to die. Like it was like a constant thing I thought about until I almost did die. And I ended up in the hospital very sick. And obviously I didn't die because I'm here today.
Thank God.
And and Scott would have never met me and we never would have had Friday nightmares and the world never would have been blessed with our jokes. But it definitely speaks to that. But this is I can't stress character development, dialogue heavy. It's like watching a play where there's no real outcome and you're kind of just enjoying the relationships and interactions of these people. So this is going to be a film that people are either going to find no value in and be bored to tears, or it's going to be a film that is much more enjoyable. Like even Vivarium had more of an outcome to it. Like I wouldn't even compare it to that because that has a climax. I didn't find that this really had a climax.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay. Doesn't mean it's a bad movie, but it's very much an art house movie. Like I was talking to another podcaster about this and we talked about the use of bright lights music, angled shots, like it just has like a very artistic film. So yeah, I would honestly, for you, Scott, I think you should check it out, but you got to be in the right state of mind where you're ready to focus on something that's heavy.
Gotcha. Yep, that'll be something I will probably try to get to this week.
Okay, great.
And
I expect you to.
Okay, I'll do my homework, and you can grade me afterwards.
Excellent.
But yeah, I can do the next one finally because there's a movie that we both watched.
Oh my God, fuck! Tired of doing all this heavy lifting while you're hungover there. Even looks pale. You guys, we should do a video release of Scott like this because usually it's me that looks hungover and shitty. And this is what it's like to be on the other side. And Scott, you should strive to be more like me and leave a clean lifestyle.
I can't. There's no way I can compete with the likes of Pound and Powell.
Oh, Pound and Powell. Oh my God, what a horrible nickname. But yeah, it's probably gonna stick. That's okay.
That's great.
I'll take all of it.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you will. Okay, anyway, back to the movies.
All right. So the movie that we both watched is Blackwater Abyss, which was like the sequel to Blackwater from like I think 4 or 5 years ago. It's just a simple creature feature killer crocodile style film. These people fall into this pit, and it's like a kind of like a cave system, and I think it's really bad storm comes through and like starts flooding it, and then all of a sudden there is a killer crocodile that hunts these people down that were hiking in the woods. And it's very by the numbers, like for a creature feature. By
numbers, yeah.
And like, but it was still enjoyable. I mean, it didn't do anything. The only part I found was really silly was the coincidences at the very end that kept happening.
That was pretty funny, yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was just an enjoyable, fun, easy watch.
There's a certain movie that it reminded me of that had to do with caves as well. That I felt like it was very similar to that. Oh
yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
And it's 98 minutes runtime. It's all Australians in it.
Yep.
Tim Davis is in it.
Calling everything a cunt.
He plays the pro. Yeah, he calls her. I won't even say it. You can say it. He plays the protagonist. Daniel plays the alligator, crocodile.
Yes.
From sorry, Horror for Dummies. I'm mixing up my podcast now, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty simple film. I think it's a VOD. Like, I don't think this was a theater.
This was straight to VOD, I think.
Yeah, like it's pretty predictable. Like,
oh yeah.
But the crocodile looked pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, I think like the effects in it looked really well. Had some good tense moments, but yeah, it was just typical creature feature. Like, if you're going and expecting that, you'll have fun with it.
Yeah, it's an easy watch. It's an easy 2020 watch. It's high up in my list, not because it's bad, just because it's simple. Kind of like Deep Blue Sea 3.
Yeah, which was actually fun.
Yeah, really fun, and better than the second one. The second one is a piece of garbage.
Yeah, I completely avoided that one.
Yeah, like this one was way better. So yeah, I would put them on par with each other. I think they're both entertaining, fun, easy to watch.
Nice. Yeah, I completely agree.
Like, I would be surprised. They may hit some people's top 10. I know Don's a big fan of Deep Blue Sea 3. I think majority of people probably won't put it up there, but nothing's wrong with them.
Right.
They're an easy movie to watch.
Yep, exactly. Like, just something fun. And then the next film is one that you've seen that I have not.
You haven't seen Prey/Uncaged?
Not yet, because that
was the lion. Rawr.
Yep. Because that's the one that was subtitled, and I have to watch it at home because I can't watch that at work and pay attention to it.
No, you don't really need to pay attention that hard.
Which, by the way, I did find out, though, the director is the same director who did The Lift.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the guy that did the Killer Elevator movie.
I like The Lift, actually. I think that's actually a pretty fun movie.
It is. It was just really cheesy. I love it.
Oh, yeah, it's super cheese, but, like, it was fun. So, anyway, this movie actually came out in 2016. So I went to check because on Shudder it says 2020, and on Shudder it's called Uncaged, but it's actually called Prey.
Okay.
And that was the original name for it. So it came out in, oh my gosh, now I can't remember the country. And I'm gonna do a real North American shit and say Europe. It came out in Europe in 2016, but it did not come to the United States and Canada till this year, which is
Okay.
why we were able to have it on our 2020 list. So this kind of reminded me of a much better version of what. Nah, Soombies is still pretty shitty. Oh, funny. The lion, the CG of the lion is not bad. You know, it's a big ass lion.
Oh, okay.
And it kills people. Like, we're not looking at anything here that's out of the box complicated. It's 110-minute running time. Probably a little too long for this movie. It probably could have been 88, 90 minutes long. They could have easily shaved off 20 minutes. But it's entertaining. And I think for a new watch on Shudder, and if you like lions, and like the lion messes shit up. Like the lion takes no prisoners.
Nice.
And people get killed who you don't think are going to get killed.
Nice.
And the blood is pretty good. The gore is pretty good. It's a natural, slow build to it. For a Shudder watch, absolutely, I recommend it. And honestly, with the subtitles, you could be half watching it and get what's going on.
Oh, okay.
Like, they switch back and forth at one point from English to... I'm not sure what the language is, but...
I think it was Danish.
Danish. They switch back and forth a little bit towards the end, but it's a very, very easy film to watch.
Nice. Yeah, that's because it's one I wanted to check out as well, because I'm like, there isn't too many killer lion horror films out there. But I think the only one I can think of is Ghost in the Darkness.
Which is such a good movie. Man.
Yeah, that movie's great.
We talked about it already, so we don't need to talk about it again. But
right.
it was mad. I know, I don't blame the lions. Like, they're just pissed.
Right?
You know, every time there's a creature feature, I always end up cheering for the creature. I never am like, yeah, damn creature. I'm always like, yeah, fuck shit up.
Well, yeah, usually it's because humans are stupid and walking into the territory of these animals.
Yeah, or I just get mad about animal, I was going to say imprisonment, but that's not the right word to use, even though that's how I feel. I sometimes get mad when people mask conservation with preservation.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Or not preservation, or imprisonment, in my opinion. Like, what not to go too deep into it, but Tiger King, that piece of shit Netflix documentary that never would have, like, it was about a bunch of fucking hicks that, like, had these exotic cats that never should have them. Yeah. And that only did well because it was COVID and no one else had anything else to do. But, like, I look at shit like that and I always hope that the cats are going to eat their owners.
Oh, same here. Oh,
you know what I mean? Like, I just think it's so, and people that go to them, like, anyway, it really gets under my skin. But anyway, this is a good movie and I definitely recommend checking it out.
Yeah, this will be one I'm going to try to watch this week as well.
For sure.
Now that I'm caught up from work.
Yeah, are you all caught up at work now? Or are they still like...
Everything, like, I had piles and piles and piles of stuff to deal with, but now that I went through that week, I've pretty much got it all back to normal.
Right, that's good, because it's going to take a week for your liver to grow back to normal, too.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm even wondering if we should be doing this tonight for Scott. Oh, my God.
I'm a trooper. What can I say?
I'm like, are you sure you want to record? He's like, yeah, let's do this. I feel like I should be like, hey, Scott, you want to get a drink?
God.
No.
The hair of the dog. No, I'm good.
You know what's so funny? There's this chick I know, and she's always like, she gets freaking wasted all the time. And she'll be like, oh my God, I'm so hungover. I'm not going to drink again. And I'm like, you're such a liar. Like, I never have said I'm never going to drink again. I've been like, man, that was bad. Can't wait to do it again.
Me, it's usually, I think I've only said that once where I'm like, I'm not going to do this again, but that was because I got to the point where I was puking. And I haven't got to that point since.
Amateur. You know what you do when you puke? You puke it all out, and then you go back and you take more. Okay?
No, this is hangover. This is hangover.
Quitter.
Well, this is hangover puking, not puking of the night.
Oh.
I've never puked while drunk.
Oh, man, I have. I've puked and gone right back out drinking.
Because you're a freaking trooper. You're hardcore.
Yes, I'm hardcore Poundin' Powell. That's who I am.
Yes.
Hardcore Heather Poundin' Powell. That's
right.
That's like a fucking wrestler name.
It kind of does. Fitting for you since you're such a huge wrestling fan.
It's true. You hear that, Dave C? What's your wrestling name? All right. You saw this one, right?
Yes.
You told me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, so I'll bring this one in. This one was actually suggested by the Taminator from the Rotten Round Table horror cast. I believe this may be her number one of the year. Like, she was hyping it up that much that she loved it. So I was like, all right, gotta check this out. had no clue what I was getting into with it. And damn, this is like a legit like scary movie. Like this one actually like creeped me out a lot, and like because it's all done on an abandoned World War II vessel,
Hmm.
and I think it's all takes place during World War II, like where these guys end up taking shelter on this abandoned vessel, and well, the cargo that is on this vessel, let's just say they are ancient vampires.
And like scary.
Yeah, they are. They are not your like pretty vampires. These are like your straight up like, uh, just straight up monsters. They
Like
are
how Scott looks like right now.
Yeah, exactly.
He looks like a vampire off a blood vessel.
But man, this movie was just really good. Like the effects were incredible. Like it kept you in the like literally kept you in the dark the entire movie because obviously abandoned ship like that, which made it even the creep factor even more. Plus, I really tend to love like when there's like these abandoned ships and people go on them and like bad stuff starts happening. It's like a great setting.
It's Scott's fantasy.
It is. Like I would totally explore an abandoned ship.
He explores everything that's abandoned.
Yep, that's true. I'm all about it.
Soon as Liver's going to abandon him.
And I'll explore that. But yeah, I thought all the cast did great in this. The effects were awesome. Like it had a really good story. The ending I thought was really cool.
Yeah, you're and the poster would
Yeah.
pass the poster art challenge. I think.
Oh yeah,
I
the
don't know,
cover
maybe it
for
went.
that is the cover for that is incredible. Like it gives away what the movie is on the cover, but
Well, and it's a 93-minute runtime, which is good. I find that when you start going over 90, 95 minutes, you better be interesting.
yeah,
And I think creature features, which is what my feedback for Prey / Uncaged is that movie's way too long. It does not need to be as long as 110 minutes. And I think if you are going to pass that hour and a half mark, you better be doing some fucking good shit. Because if you're going to be a 2-hour, 2.5-hour horror movie, it better be interesting. Like, as much as I'm not the biggest Midsommar fan in the entire planet, which I'm not. I respect the film. I think it's very interesting, but I don't love it. I do understand why it is long as it is. I may not enjoy parts of it, but everything in that film is included for a reason.
yeah,
exactly. And I will give it that, right? And that is why it is so long. Now, mind you, I've never seen the director's cut, nor do I plan on it. But
actually, you did when we watched when we did the commentary for the Horror Return.
Did I?
Yep.
Oh my god! No wonder it took so long. Okay, so and I didn't remember scenes. But yeah, that I've seen it twice, and anyway, like unless you're Midsommar, you should not be doing a 2.5-hour fucking horror movie. So I'm really happy when I see something like this, 93 minutes, perfect length of time.
Yep, fast and to the point, especially when it's like something like a movie like this that has like a fairly simple plot. It's like boom, like just like most slasher films,
like most of my dates, fairly simple, to the point. Let's not waste our time.
What are dates? Inside joke.
They're actually this dessert you can get.
Oh, okay, perfect. But then I got two more 2020 films that I was going to bring up. One that we both watched and one that I watched.
You can't talk about your 2020 films.
I'm going to, because I'm special.
Hair flip. Beard flip.
Yeah, beard flip. But the one I'll talk about first is the one that I seen. This one was released on Shudder on Thursday, and that was Random Acts of Violence.
Which I didn't get in Canada.
You didn't get it?
No, I can't get it in Canada. It's not on Shudder right now. No.
Dang it. All right, well, that's another one I'll have to try finding a way to get to you, because,
Thanks.
yeah, this is a great movie. Like, it is a modern-day slasher with kind of an art house feel to it. Yeah, it's got a very art house style feel to it with like the way it is shot and filmed, because it's about this comic book artist who is pretty much doing this comic book series on this known serial killer from back in the day, and the serial killer had never been found, and so he's doing a comic book series on him, and then he was going on the road to do like the circuit to promote the comics, and then all of a sudden killings start happening that are the exact same style kills that are in his books. So he's got like someone that is pretty much copying that, and yeah, it's very violent. It's got some very good kills. Some very disturbing kills, very creepy, and yeah, just a very solid slasher film. Like this is a high recommend. Like this is probably I haven't decided where I'm placing it on my list yet, but it's definitely going to be in my top 20 somewhere.
No, it's because you can't see straight today, so it's pretty hard.
It's true. It always is.
That's awesome. I look forward to watching it in 3 years when Canada gets it.
Yeah, like I say, I'll see what I can do to get you a copy of it to watch.
Awesome. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, you're welcome. And the other one is the one that we both seen, and that was what we watched last Sunday, Cruel Peter.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Cruel Peter.
Yeah, like
what do you know?
It's one of those films where you look at the cover, and this is definitely not passing the Dave Z cover test. Like,
you notice how much we talk about exploding heads?
That's because we're headaches.
I feel like we're obsessed.
Well, we are stalkerish. I mean, you have stalked pretty much 2 of them at least.
It's true. Dave C.
Yep.
Just wait till those borders open.
I'm stalking Junior from afar right now.
How could you not?
Yeah, back to the movie. Yeah, Cruel Peter.
Also, like a Peter. Peter is actually a name that is used sometimes.
Oh my gosh, we are like so out of it today. It's awesome. I love it.
No, you're out of it, and I'm toying with you like cat with a mouse.
That's so true. Okay,
that's
fair.
happening.
But yeah, Cruel Peter was like it has like the very most generic looking horror cover, but Mark Nato from the horror cast had talked about how like he really liked it, and with Mark Nato, I know his tastes, and him and I sometimes agree and disagree depending on the films. And
like sometimes he's wrong, and
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes he's right.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
But yeah, this one I thought was pretty good because it's about this like vicious little kid that ends up getting buried alive, and then ends up basically being like a possession film, like when it moves into the future, like a couple 100 years later, a couple hundred years later.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, for the possession exorcism style horror film, I thought it was pretty good. Like it's not like, oh my god, this is amazing, but no, I thought it was good. Like it was creepy, had like it was very well shot and produced.
It's
like
weird.
the acting
the
was really
Letterboxd
good.
doesn't have the runtime, and it's funny because it's available on Netflix, Hoopla.
Yep, Hoopla is the where you can rent from the library.
Tubi has it too, which is kind of cool.
Amazon Prime,
and it's on Prime, and yeah, it was Netflix Canada is where I watched it, and I think your observation is pretty cool. It's true. It's a ghost story. The kid's a real piece of shit. Cruel Peter is kind of an understatement to how horrible this kid is.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a smooth ride. Would I sit there and be like, oh man, best film of 2020? No. But out of 126 films, I believe I have it in the 70s. So it definitely was enjoyable enough. If you're looking to really, narrow down your watches, I don't think this is something that is. I didn't give it a 7 out of 10. I think I gave it a 6 or a 6.5.
Yeah, I was the one that gave it a 7. You gave it a 6.
Yeah, you always give it high.
That's right. Unless
it's like politically angry movies. Because someone called me out on it the other day that I like that I only give movies high ratings if they have societal horrors. And I always say, well, what was really good about it is it reflected the horrors in society. And
That's true.
I was laughing so hard that I was crying when this person said this to me. It was over the phone, and it was fucking like it nailed it. Like it's totally something I would say. So anyway, I did enjoy it though. I think it's worth a watch, but I don't know if it's going to hit many people's top 10s or 20s or whatever.
Right. It's just one of those another easy watches.
Yes, absolutely. And Scott and I are like anything is things that are easy.
Yes, we love it easy.
We do. We love it easy.
But yeah, that's the end of the 2020 films. So I guess we should jump into the older films that you watched. And I have one, then I'll wait till yours are done.
I know. Well, yeah, I have a pretty impressive list.
Well, I have a bunch more, but they're all themed with our topic, and I was just like,
yeah, because I noticed recently when we're doing movies, we're like balls to the wall theme topic.
Yeah,
like we're like we doubled down.
Well, I was telling you when I love it when we get our theme because there's days where like if we've already recorded our episode, like after tonight, we won't know what our next episode's going to be yet. I struggle to figure out what I'm going to watch because I'm like, I just don't know what to look for. And then when we do a theme, I'm going, oh, I'll look up a list of movies, and then, oh, I haven't seen these, I should check these out, and then I just go balls to the wall with it.
I think we do have a theme for next episode.
Oh yes, I think we do.
I think we do.
I think we do.
Well, we'll leave that as a surprise at the end. We want to keep people wanting more. So, the older films that I watched, the first one was Blood Rage, 1987.
Nightmare at Shadow Woods.
Is that what it's also called?
Yep, or Nightmare. I think it's Nightmare in Shadow Woods.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. I remember you had mentioned it.
Yeah, like when we were first talking, because I watched it on Thanksgiving. Like I was
Yes.
talking to you about it then.
And I had never got around to watching it, and then through a good friend's Plex, he had it, and I was like, "Oh, great!" Because sometimes it's really hard to find these 1980 movies.
Yeah.
Like it's you can't even find them to rent sometimes. Like one of the movies that we were covering tonight, I couldn't even rent in Ontario.
Oh wow.
I tried to rent it last night, and I couldn't even do that. So anyway, I couldn't watch it. Bottom line. So, but. Fun movie. A little bit of spoilers here. It's basically about two twins, and one of the twins commits this gruesome murder in a drive-in movie theater and gets locked away. And the idea is that the wrong twin gets locked away.
Yeah.
And then that twin escapes, and chaos occurs. For a low-budget 1980s film, I really enjoyed it. And there's a heartbreaking scene at the end. One of the twins and the mom, and it was heavy.
Yeah.
Like it was a heavy film for that ending scene, and I don't know if I would run out and rewatch it anytime soon. I didn't see it really Thanksgiving-y besides the fact of like they ate some turkey and mashed potatoes.
Well, in the line, it's not cranberry sauce, said a couple different times.
Yeah, like there was some stupid shit like that. But I don't know. It wasn't. It was okay. I'm glad I saw it, but I wouldn't say it's one of those 1980 slashers that you just gotta go out and watch.
And I would say it is. It's in my top 10 slashers of all time. I love.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I love.
You're
love
fucking
this
kidding
movie.
me. No, you don't.
Oh, I do. Like I love the fact that the guy that's playing both twins, like he does an amazing job. Like.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah.
The kills are mean and violent and like really gory, like more than I expected for especially practical effects 80s slasher like that, like especially so low budget. I just love the whole idea of the wrong twin being locked up and like him being blamed.
Why is it because you locked up your twin?
I ate my twin.
You ate your twin.
But no, it's just one of those 80s slashers. It's like an easy watch. It's one of the very few Thanksgiving movies, and well,
it's not really Thanksgiving. It's just
no. It's got like it's like just a theme to like. There's that theme there that you can use as the excuse to watch
I guess this sounds like an American thing. Yeah, okay. It's a Thanksgiving movie.
But I'll just say it's better than Thanksgiving and Home Sweet Home.
All right, I got to check those out next. So we'll see.
Maybe you don't. You do not want to see those.
I don't know. You liked this one, and I thought this one was okay. Like, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I don't know. Maybe I just have better taste. Maybe I'm
maybe
wrong.
you just have poor taste.
Maybe it's just not.
It's not political and talking about the societal horrors.
Yeah, that's right. There's no political talk in it. It's so true. I can't.
So it's just not a Heather jam.
You know what? It's just not my jam because it doesn't fit the small box of things I like. But yeah. Anyway, that was a first time watch for me. And then on a recommendation of Brandon Orlick from Exploding Heads, I watched A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, and wow, it's a really good movie.
Is it?
I'm not just saying that because I'm in love with Brandon. Saying that.
Wow.
Just kidding. I'm saying that because it's actually really good. Now it is definitely you got to put your thinking cap on. It's not a movie you should be watching when you're tired or you're not focused, because you do need to focus throughout it. Like, first of all, it's subtitled, so you're going to be reading throughout it.
And it's very slow.
Oh, you've seen it, right?
I seen parts of it and passed out to it because it was on the last drive-in with Joe Bob Briggs. He did it. It
Mm,
was the last movie of the
okay.
night, and yeah, just
Okay.
like
I think if you watched it when you're alert, you would be feeling a lot better about it. You do have to be alert. You do have to kind of be in the zone to watch it.
yeah, because I've been very curious about this one.
The opening I didn't enjoy. The opening scene I thought was dragged for me, but then as it goes, it gets really good. And there's some really like sexy scenes without being sexy. Like they're not actual sex scenes, but they're this very sexy for the eye, very good use of sex appeal, without being over the top.
Oh, okay,
And a good ending and good use of music, good use of filming. Like it's just a really masterfully done film.
nice. Yeah, this is
So
one I'll
I
definitely have
recommend
to
it.
rewatch, or I
Yeah.
will try to watch.
I think as long as you're in the right place of mind, right? Like there's certain
Right.
movies that you can't watch unless you're focused. Like She Dies Tomorrow is an excellent movie, but if you're not focused or into that kind of film, you're not going to enjoy it,
Right.
right? So you have to be there in order to like it. So that would be my only recommendation.
All right. And then yeah, I guess I can talk about the one film. Well, I guess I can just talk about both of them because I've almost finished the other one. But Psycho 2 from 1983 and Psycho 3 from I think 1986 or 1987.
Oh, cool.
Because I've only ever watched the original Psycho, never seen any of the sequels, so I've been slowly making my way through them because I've heard good things. Like I heard Part 4 is not that great, but it's the fourth and final one, so I'm gonna at least watch it and finish off the series. But the second one is uh, Norman Bates gets released from the asylum after, like, dressing up as his mother from the first film and killing Marion Crane and all that. And then he's just kind of starts working at this cafe and has like moves back into the old Bates Hotel.
Mm.
And while he's doing this, he makes friends with this woman that's working at the cafe as well, who is looking for a place to live or just find a place to stay because she broke up with her boyfriend. So he's offering like, "Oh, I got this motel. You're welcome to stay here." And then while she's staying there, like things start happening. People start disappearing, and like I'll go into spoilers for this because it's 83, but like but it's pretty much this girl and her mother are messing with uh Norman Bates, and
Why?
because the mother especially, like I guess Norman Bates killed, I guess Marion Crane, I think, or someone was these people's aunt and sister, and so they are fucking with Norman Bates and making him think that he's killing again, and like they're dressing up like his mother and shit like that just to fuck with him, and just very very engaging, great story, great acting, very solid, like from beginning to end. Like this is a 10 out of 10. Like I loved this movie. This was really really good. I think I like this just as much as the first movie, maybe even more.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I'm almost done with part 3, but I've pretty much got to the end of it, and part 3 plays out definitely more like a total 80s horror film. You got Jeff Fahey in it. He's like this rock and roll dude that shows up at the Bates Motel because, yep, Norman Bates is just running the motel. No one's been there for a while. And then, yep, just another woman, a nun that runs away from her habit, ends up showing up, and she looks a lot like Marion Crane. So Norman Bates starts having weird flashbacks and like starts freaking out about it. But this one definitely is a lot more like the 80s hard rock style, like with the way it's shot, the way it's filmed, a little more sleazy, things like that. But yeah, this is still a really good, solid sequel to the trilogy. Like
Awesome.
I would recommend it.
You recommend both?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I am definitely think I'm definitely a fan of the Psycho series so far. Just need to see part 4.
Awesome. I'll have to check out 2 and 3. If you like it, I may.
Yep, right. But I mean, obviously, you gotta see if you got as good taste as me.
I know. We'll see if I have up to the taste that Smoke Show Crawford does.
Right? I'll say Pound and Powell. Up to you.
Captain Powell. What a fucking horrible name.
You did it to yourself.
I did it to myself. Pound and Powell did it to herself, huh?
Pound and Powell's been double fisting and did it to herself.
Oh my god. This is just and my fan only page can be found at. So that concludes our older and our newer films. And we're going to jump into what we've been listening to. So the first thing I want to announce is the Dark Discussions podcasting network has been launched. Many podcasts that were originally housed on Horophilia have officially moved over. So congratulations to this new network. Looking forward to hearing all that you guys have to offer and this new adventure, and all the best to Jason Lloyd as he kind of wraps down his term with Horophilia, and I hope he enjoys his next steps, whatever those may be for him.
Yep, I completely agree because, yeah, Jason, you brought in a lot of talent to this community, and it is like you did a lot for this community, so it's great, that you'll finally be able to put your show to rest. But it's good to know that the hard work that you put in is appreciated and loved, and will be moving forward and still going strong.
Absolutely, and I think it's a great new network, new start. And it's a great thing to come out of 2020. So congratulations to everyone that's moved over and is about to move over. I know our podcast, It's Not Horror Okay, is now on the Dark Discussion Podcasting Network, along with all of Nudie's other shows, such as NFW and Hard to Kill podcast. So that will be over there as well. So a podcast that I've checked out recently, which is actually done by a fellow patron from the Exploding Heads podcast, is the movie Misfits. So their podcast little description is, what exactly is a movie misfit, besides a catchy and incredibly accurate description of the cinephile outcasts who run this show. So it's John Spooky Rhodes, Crippled Cody, and Jason Gray, and they go over a variety of different movies, and they're pretty funny, and they actually have wrestling talk too. Really, really enjoyed their summer blockbuster episode where they talked about different summer movies, including Jaws, and one of them has never seen Jaws. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, wow.
So it was a really, really cool conversation about that. John Rhodes is the only one I kind of know through our chat groups, and John is quite knowledgeable. Also, he is very funny. So I'm really excited to be listening to this podcast and to promote them. You can find them just on Podcast Addict by searching Movie Misfits, and I believe they're up to episode 6, and I recommend checking them out.
Yeah, because these guys have been on my list as well, because I've been talking to John a little bit too. And I've worked with John once, a long time ago, I believe, on, I think it was Paul Stevens' show.
I love Paul Stevens. Oh, man.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
He really is.
But yeah, the show that I'm going to talk about is probably a fairly well-known one once again, but it is the Hysteria Continues. And their description is a podcast dedicated to the most reviled of horror subgenres. The slasher movie from the people behind Hysteria lives and the body count continues. Reviews, retrospectives, and more includes some brief, strong language and spoilers. But these guys, that is all their show is about. They've done 216 episodes so far, and they've been around for a while. So I'm thinking they're maybe bi-weekly to monthly, and they only cover slashers. And they're still finding slashers, even stuff that could be kind of a slasher, they add it to that list because it's it's got slasher vibes to it. We'll talk about it. And it's from anything from new to old, giallos, whatever. The hosts are Justin, Nathan, Joseph, and Eric. All really, really well knowledged and know what they are talking about, especially in this genre. I believe Justin actually wrote a book about slasher films.
What?
Yeah. And they are constantly called upon by Scream Factory and Arrow Video and companies like that to do commentaries for the film that company is distributing. So yeah, actually it's kind of funny because I was going to watch I forget what movie it was I was going to watch, but it was on our good friend's Plex, and I started it, and all of a sudden the Hysteria Continue guys are talking over top of it. I'm going, no way, that is awesome.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I'm glad that you are promoting them. Sounds like they're kind of famous.
Yeah, I don't hear anyone in our community talk about them, but yeah, they have a huge following and do a lot of work in the whole genre, whether it's through movies or podcasting or writing. They seem to have their hands in everything.
You gotta love how we always refer to a good friend's plex, huh? Like,
Yeah.
I wonder if people are like, who is this friend? And how do they have so many movies? Like, we're so discreet about it. It's actually kind of funny. I
do love that.
now. Like, we're like, who knows?
It's a
Um,
mystery.
it's, we just like to keep it spicy here on Friday night.
Oh, spicy smoke show Crawford here.
Man, like, I'm Pound and Powell. Fuck. Oh my God. Anyway, we are going to take a quick break to hear from one of our fellow Legion shows, and we'll be back with our main topic, back to school, just after. See you on the flip side.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Maddie.
Do you like horror movies?
I sure do.
Well, did you know that most horror movies are inspired by real-life horror?
Really? Like what?
Well, take The Shining, for instance. That's based on Stephen King's real-life addictions, or The Purge, which could be our country any minute now.
Oh, and The Strangers, which is based on a real-life murder. People should be talking about these things.
Hey, guys.
Oh, hey, Producer
Michael, hi.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but somebody already is. It's you.
That's right. We are Friday the 13th, the podcast where we talk about horror in real life and horror in media, all from an LGBTQ perspective.
Because we gay, y'all.
We are proud members of the Legion Podcast Network, and we can be found on iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever your favorite podcasts are found.
And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Come along with us on this crazy journey, and as always,
Get slayed.
And welcome back to our main topic of this evening, which is back to school. We are at the end of August, and for some people in some states, people are already back to school. Canada still very much has a typical school system of where we start in September and go to June. I think it's the same in Michigan.
Yeah, I think it's like the last week of August is usually when high school starts. But like I think it just really depends on the schools.
Okay, yeah, because you guys go district to district. Like the districts in your areas have a lot of control. Is that correct?
For the most part, yeah.
It's weird because everything is provincial wide here for public schools, and then we have Catholic schools that are also run by the government that are all, but they're Catholic, so it's a separate religion school, and then you have private schools that can do whatever they kind of want.
Yeah, but that's the same thing we have too.
Right, but district to district can decide what they do. They can't do that here.
Right.
Like there's a certain amount to what they can decide, but a lot of things are provincial because all the teachers are part of one union and they make really good money in Canada, unlike the States.
Yeah, unlike the States where the teachers just don't get.
Right? Like a teacher is a good job in Canada. Like it is, you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that want to be on the waiting list to become a teacher in Canada.
Yeah, and here it's like, you got people that want to be teachers, but that's because they love working with children. And it's not for the pay, because the pay is just shit, and like the schools never get like the money they need and all that stuff.
It's crazy. Well, unless they have sports teams.
That
Anyway,
too,
we won't
yeah.
get too much into that yet. Football.
America.
Football. Anyway, so let's start off with the history of school in the United States to begin with. So, Scott, do you know anything about the history of school in the United States?
Not really. Like,
No?
I just know, like, schools roughly were like 1600s when it first started.
Yep. So the first recorded public school on record was the Boston, is that what it's called? Boston Latin School. So it was opened on April 23rd, 1635 in Boston, Massachusetts. And it was a boys-only public secondary school that was led by a schoolmaster. His name really isn't overly important. The Boston Latin School was strictly for college preparation. So obviously this was a school in which people who came from means were sending their kids to.
Yeah.
And it was modeled after the free grammar schools of Boston and England. So the English school taught Latin and Greek and centered on humanities. Some of the Boston school's most well-known alumni include John Hancock and Samuel Adams, and Benjamin Franklin was a dropout. I love how they always talked about that. Obviously a very bright, intelligent man.
Yeah.
So the Boston Latin School still is a fully functioning public school today, and it has students in the grades from 7 to 12 enrolled. However, it has become co-educational in 1972 and moving locations several times. It is still a very high society school. It is very competitive and limited to the residents of the city. So much like back in the day, education was really meant for those who came from means. And it was meant to have those individuals learn how to read and write. If we look at the vast population, most people were illiterate with the exception of being maybe able to read the Bible, and very simple instructions and other materials such as that. So if we go down to some quick facts of the history of education in America, the first public schools in America offered a very different curriculum compared to what is taught today. Initially, public schools focused on religion, family, morality, and didn't find the nature of academic instruction terribly important. Also, education for girls was limited. Faint and shock on that one.
Right.
Girls learned how to read, but didn't learn how to write.
Wow.
Why do you think that was, Scott?
I don't
Take
even
a guess.
I actually have no freaking clue why that would be.
Women didn't own property, and they were considered property of their fathers and then of their husbands. So the man would own everything, so they would be the one to sign their name.
Oh.
A father would be giving, when we talk about giving the bride, so
Yeah.
a father would be giving his daughter as property to another man, so she doesn't need to sign. She would need to read to understand instructions on maybe how to sew or how to do things for the home, possibly stuff like that, know how to read the Bible, so she would know how to be a good woman in the eyes of God if we're looking at the Christian faith. But she would not need to know how to write.
That's so insane.
Well, it's insane, but at the time, that's how the world was structured, right?
Oh, it was, yeah.
And this is why when people don't understand why feminists get so mad, because we had shit like this, right?
Right.
And for the longest time, women weren't able to own property, and they had to be underneath a man, and like that's not something that's been changed dramatically until like the last 50 years. Like I think people don't realize how difficult it's been for females, right? So at the time, girls were their goal was to be a good wife and mother. That was their role. Right, is to, growing up, it was to get a mate that would take care of them, and that was the exchange too, right? So if I can't read or write, my husband must be able to provide a life for me, and in turn, I provide a life at home that is, allows him to go out and work, etc. Right?
Right.
So academics didn't become a popular concept in the public school system until the 1850s. At this point, concepts like math and reading were introduced to promote literacy. In the 1850s, public school attendance was at 59%. So obviously, you had farmers, you had people that were working, you had people that were doing jobs like blacksmiths and other things like that. So the kids would need to be home to do that kind of work. You had children. Obviously, we're not looking at birth control during this time. So every time you banged, you took the risk of having another kid.
Yeah.
And you need those kids at home to working to either, the fields or to bring money in so you can feed them. Although it took some time for the public school system to grow in America, by the 1900s, 31 states were requiring children to attend public school from the ages of 8 till 14. The demand for public education continued to grow, and by 1918, all states required at least the completion of elementary school, which is huge. And we probably see this at the end of the First World War. And I would have to do more research on this, but I wonder if it has to do with making good soldiers, because they would have had people going into the military that maybe weren't able to read or didn't have an idea of distances, and that may have been a real disadvantage when fighting in the war. So
yeah, that very well could be.
Went to work. So we got to remember that we started to see the women working. Even though that happened more in World War II, you would have seen more of a role of females as well. So maybe the need for them to have education too. So from 1920s on, more academic subjects were introduced. Schools began to focus more on math, English, and social studies. What was your favorite subject in school, Scott? Maybe elementary or secondary school. I don't know if you want to separate them. Was there anything you really enjoyed?
For me, it was always art and math.
And it was math because it was clear answers?
Yeah, math just because I loved the thinking and the problem solving. Like I love trying to figure out how to make this equation work, especially when it got into a lot more complicated stuff. And like, I don't know why, but yeah, I became obsessed with numbers and just was able to figure that stuff out and it just came naturally to me. And art, just because I kind of am like an art appreciation nut, and and I'm fairly artistic, so I loved like just honing my skill more. History was probably my least favorite at the time. Like, I'm more into history now as I'm older, but back then I could care less about anything about the history.
It's funny because history was my first.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Right. And it's more or less because I like understanding where we came from, and it gives an understanding of the choices that we've made as a society and why we're at where we're at. And I do think a knowledge of history, much like a value knowledge of mathematics, can allow you to understand the problems and look at how things can be solved in the future. But math is a really intense skill that a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
And, I think school systems have this job of teaching us subjects to grow with our knowledge, but also have the challenge of preparing us for North American society, which we both live in capitalist societies. Canada is a capitalist society with more social values, but we're both capitalist societies.
Right.
And you're expected to know how to read and write and do math, and eventually you have to do income taxes. And there's a lot of things that you need to do. And school kind of trains you for that working day too, right? That Monday to Friday work, having to work with other people, you don't really care for, learning how to get along, learning how to follow rules, structure, how to behave in a group. Like, school is a lot to do with socialization, which is why
it's probably the biggest thing besides obviously the learning is getting everybody socialized.
Absolutely. And that's why horror movies can really capitalize it, because in North America, generally speaking, we all go to school. Yes, there are people that are in very impoverished situations, or those that are homeschooled, or those that, for whatever reason, don't attend typical school, whether that be public, private, or a religious school. But it is something we all experience. So I feel like horror movie can also capitalize on that, because there's also a lot of socialization that goes through, especially in high school, when it comes to cliques and stuff like that. And we'll get into that when we talk about the movies. So in the 1950s in the United States, attendance rose to 75%. So we started to see more people going to school. There was definitely more pressure put on it. And then the Every Student Succeed Act replaced the 2001 No Child Left Behind Act. It allowed the federal government to retain a role in public education, but places the primary responsibilities on the states when it comes to establishing standards. This is what's so different in Ontario and Canada. So the federal government does oversee standards, and basically the provinces have some flexibility, but we have to be able to compare education from one province to another. So if I move from Ontario to BC, there needs to be a comparable curriculum.
And I think that's what perfect sense.
I just think it's interesting how the states are run, because as we can see here, the federal government does have a role, but they're relying more on the states to decide on how they're going to prepare students for college and careers. So today, so as of the last year, public school attendance is at 94%, which is pretty high. You still got 6% of people that don't attend school, and I think that's scary. We think 6%, oh, that's not a big deal. But if we think of the population of the United States of America, that is actually a very high number.
Is that 6%? Does that consider like people that are homeschooled, or is this just people that just?
Well, if you're homeschooled, you would have to declare to the government in that state that you're homeschooling your child.
Yeah, that would consider attendance then.
Right. So this would be people that are just dropped out. So it would be 6% of the entire school age population of the United States.
Man, maybe that's why we have the president that we have now.
Side note. Gee, maybe that is. Anyway, so in Canada, because I always like to bring in Canada as well.
Oh, of course.
Right, comparable. So not that I think Canada's better, because we have stuff too. So free and compulsory public schooling was first instituted in Ontario in 1871. So we were a little bit behind the states, which we usually are. And then most Canadian provinces soon followed its lead. So these were free state-run schools offered to major social economic problems at the time. A better education. So the idea was that a better education would allow for children to learn the skills to be good workers and good citizens. And we're very much still connected to the British monarchy, especially during this time. So, there would have been this huge pressure on being a good Brit and living in Canada, right? There's definitely something that existed that did not exist in the United States, because you guys told the British to fuck off long.
Yep.
So And we still haven't told them to fuck off. We just kind of like gently kind of escorted them out with like this really, slight connection we have to them. So because child labor contributed to family survival, many parents were reluctant to send their children to school. Others objected to compulsory schooling because it did not match their language or their religion. By the 1890s, most people had come to hope that free and compulsory schooling would improve their children's lives and lead to a more just Canada. So there is the idea also that the use of science and human nature to create a better society on Earth, the idea of developing more of that professional middle class family, so like doctors, lawyers, educators, wealthier business people, to basically spread knowledge and to reduce the amount of individuals attending insane asylums, prisons, and workhouses for the poor. So we still very much have a division. I didn't get a rate here for how many students don't, or how many percentage of children that are school age aren't enrolled in school, but I did get some other facts about Canada's education system that is a little different to the United States. So to provide students with a quality education, there are about 80% of colleges and universities that are managed by the government in Canada. So as a Canadian citizen, the Canadian government pays for half of the tuition.
Wow.
So you still pay a lot as a Canadian citizen to go to school, but the Canadian government will pay half of that, which is why, as I say this, working for a university and for a college part-time, and those are two-tiered programs. So colleges are seen as vocational, and universities are more the theoretical learning. So if you want to be a vet, a doctor, an engineer, an English teacher, you would go to university. If you wanted to do maybe social service working or become an automotive technician, or I'm trying to think of another thing offhand, an early childhood educator, you would go to college. So there is between the schoolings. College is cheaper than university. Most of the teachers, except for pre-primary and primary school teachers in Canada, have a higher education that allows them to be experts in a particular field. So this is true. If you go to teach high school, you must have 2 teachables. So you have to major in university, which means you have to take majority of those courses. So if I'm a math teacher at a high school, math would have had to be my major in university. So I would have had to take a lot of math courses. Canada is the world leader when it comes to language training. As a country with 2 official languages, English and French, it's required students to learn both. This is 100% true. So from grade 4 to grade 10, we had mandatory French classes. You did have an option. Your parents could put you in French immersion, which would be half day English, half day French. And definitely if you want a job in the government or any of our Francophone pockets across Canada, this is a benefit to have.
Yeah, and that shows like the huge difference from the U.S. because this is what's just something that you and I learned about each other just through, just having conversations about how much, how many classes you had to take of French, where here we had one requirement to take one Spanish class throughout our entire 12 years of high school, or 12 years of elementary to high school.
Yeah, from grade 4 to grade 10, French is mandatory.
Yeah, and that's, I wish that would have been like a mandatory thing here, like at least one language or another.
No, and some people don't like that, right? Because for some people, learning languages are very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And that is more done because of our agreement with Quebec, and people have different thoughts on that. Personally, I don't use French enough for it to be of anything of importance, to be honest with you. But we also do offer other language classes as well. I've talked before how I've taken Punjabi. So when I went back and I did Punjabi, I did some courses through high school. So on my high school transcript now, I have 2 Punjabi credits.
Nice.
Hilarious, right? But anyway. And then nearly each religious community in Canada has private religious schools. So we do have private schools all over the place. It's very, very common. Montessori to specific Christian schools to Muslim schools. And they do have to respond to the provincial government of what kind of education they're going to be, they have to follow some of the similar curriculums. Like even if you homeschool, you have to write an exam. I think it's past grade 4 for each grade. So you have to teach your child a certain curriculum, and then they are required to write an exam before they can move to the next grade.
Oh, wow.
Right. So it is very structured in Canada, which has its pros and cons. I'm sure that does limit then the amount of creativity that you can have in a classroom at times. Also, we tend to shy away from corporate sponsors, where I think the States does this really well. And people, like when I was younger, I used to have a beef with this, but I actually think it's a really good idea. Like if you have Coca-Cola sponsor your football field, And all that means is like Coca-Cola is going to have their name on a billboard, and yeah, they're going to sell only Coke products in your calf. Yes. Is that a form of monopoly? Absolutely. Does it increase unhealthy eating? For sure.
Yeah.
But you're also getting a whole shitload of money to plug back into that school to provide better resources. And some schools have started doing that here in Canada, but it's still not nearly what it is in the States. And when it comes to scouting for sports, you know, we don't get nearly the scouts unless it's for hockey, and that's not high school teams. Those are private paid teams, like junior A, double A, whatever teams. So, you know, we have some really great Canadian athletes that will never make it because unless they're down, it's not like in the States where, you know, you can play ball and have a career playing ball, which, you know, people can always argue the pros and cons about that, but at least there's an opportunity for people who maybe don't come from financial means to go to university or college or whatever. Because I still don't understand the difference between college and universities in the States.
I'll say, like, I know, like, the one thing that is true is universities are more expensive here than colleges. There's also community colleges, which are like a lower tier college, kind of like classes are cheaper. It's kind of like a stepping stone to getting to a better college or a university.
Okay.
Especially if you want to go for because a lot of at least in Michigan, the college I went to, Mott Community College, I think the most you can get there is like once you specialize in a degree like my accounting, the most you can get there is an associate's, which I forget what that is an equivalent to in Canada, but it's like right before the bachelor's.
Yes. It's only for university, we only have bachelor's or honors bachelor. Honors is just 4 years, bachelor is 3. And then college is a college diploma.
Okay, so then it's associate's degree is pretty much like a college diploma for you guys. And then the bachelor's, then we had master's and I think doctorate was the other one.
Yeah, so PhD, same thing that we have. Yeah.
And yeah, I think like the bachelor's on up is like the universities. Colleges kind of just give you that stepping stone into it. Like, so if I wanted to continue my accounting, I would have to go to either a specialized university like Northwood or U of M or Michigan State, something like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, makes sense. So, as we can see, we do live in 2 countries that schooling is something that people generally experience. And, you know, and horror reflects life, and schools have changed very much. And if we look at schools from the 1980s going into present day, cliques, social development, what your expectations are once you finish school. You know, we know that schools at one time were basically just meant to help you become a good citizen, and now schools are definitely seen as you got to get involved in extracurriculars and you got to do this, and if you want to be successful you need to start networking and making contacts. Things have really changed, and horror has gone with that. So we've chosen a couple of movies that we're going to talk about that reflect the school experience. So the first one we're going to talk about is Student Body's 1981. Released on August 7th in 1981, it is an American parody slasher film. So it particularly parodies Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Prom Night. And it was, I guess, the first parody, they say, to really capitalize on the slasher genre. So,
yeah, because the slasher genre had only been around for roughly like a handful of years at this point. Like, obviously there's like proto slashers and whatnot, like when we talked about our history of the slasher film, but yeah, 1981, that's like not even the prime of slasher films yet, and there was already a parody of them, which is interesting.
Absolutely. And when I first started watching this movie, I didn't know it was a parody. So I Googled horror movies based in high school, and Student Bodies came up, and I'm like, oh, this must be an 80s slasher I never heard of. So I start watching it, and the opening scene is the breather is in this chick's house, and he keeps calling, and he's like breathing like Black Christmas. It also reminded me a lot of Black Christmas, and the breathing is over the top. And there's one part where he's walking up the stairs, and he's like, so many stairs, because they keep shooting back to him walking up the stairs, and he steps on gum.
He's like, why is there gum on this step?
I was dying. I was like, oh my God, this must be a parody. Like, this is hilarious. And then there's the part where they're doing horse head bookends, and like that's what they do in this woodworking class is horse head bookends. And that totally like woodworking. I've been to a woodworking class, and it was like dumb shit like that you had to do. Like it was totally reflective of dumb shit.
Hell, I still actually have some of my woodworking. My spice rack that's in my kitchen is from my woodworking class.
Oh, really?
Yep, I made that, and then I have this giant chest in my computer room that it's like one of those chests that you can sit down on, and then you open it up and it has everything inside. I built that as well, and like I still have them.
That's really funny. I had no idea that you had made that shit. That's really cool. So anyway, like, and then there's some at the beginning. So the chick gets killed and the guy gets killed, and then there's like, and they're about to have sex, and he goes into the shower. Like, she's like, you have to go clean yourself off, and then there's. I'm jumping all over the place. And then at the fucking funeral, like they're holding a funeral and they got the cheerleaders there. And oh my God, like it's just.
This movie reminds me of Airplane for slasher films.
Yes, absolutely. And they make
so ridiculous. And
they make commentary that's pretty relevant. They say, we have to make sure that we get everything done this week because the school board has only given us enough funding for extracurriculars to be done during this first week back at school. Like they were giving digs at funding and administrators in that opening scene, well, not opening scene, but in that beginning of the movie, and like they sneak off from the funeral to go have sex, and every time people sneak off, they're like, he must be going to help her find a bathroom, like constantly using that as a reason why they're sneaking off. Oh my God, this movie, if you have not seen Student Bodies from 1981, I don't know what horror fan could not find this funny. And I'm sure there are people out there that don't find this funny, but I was literally dying watching this film.
Yeah, like you even said, like, I don't know if you're gonna find this one funny because, like, obviously my humor and everything.
You have no sense of humor.
Hey, I've proven I do.
No, you've faked it, and you probably didn't like it, but you've said you do because you're tired of me shaming you.
Well, you respected my opinion with Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yes, that was surprising that you found that funny. Yes.
Stuff like that. But no, I went into this one going, all right, so Heather doesn't think I'm going to like this one. So I have a feeling it's going to be way over the top because I know your sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, like, it is way over the top.
Yep, and getting into it, I'm going, holy hell, this is insanely over the top. And it was amazing. I loved it. Like, I can't believe I've never heard of it. Like, I've heard the name Student Bodies, but I had no idea it was anything like this.
Like, I may look back on my gems of this year that aren't new watches, and this is probably going to be one of my top gems. Like, if we did like a top 10 or top 10, just like gems that we never heard of that we watched this year for the first time, this is going to be up in it because it was so hilarious. And then like the girl that's overly the top and like talking about sex and how wrong it is, and like you can call me daddy, oh my dad did this to me, don't call me daddy. Like it's so funny. Like it's just so
it is great.
Funny. And at the end, so spoilers, where she wakes up and it's like the Wizard of Oz, like, and you were there. And you were there.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And then like how they do the homage at the end to like Toby kills her because she lost respect for herself, but then she comes back for him from the grave, like Carrie. Like, oh my God.
It's such a nod to Carrie.
It was so good. It was so good. So I guess, did this capture the back to school experience in the 80s, do you think?
I feel it kind of did.
Oh, I think it totally played on all the stereotypes.
Yeah, so it played on the stereotypes for sure. That's where I think like that's for sure. Like it didn't feel like it was a high school movie, like, but it had like the setting and like the stereotypes.
Absolutely.
But I think it did a pretty good job.
I think that it really took every single like 80s trope of like the waiting till to have sex and the cheerleaders and the football game and the parade and having parades randomly when people are dying and like just trying like, and I just thought that it was so good. And I look at a movie like Disturbing Behavior, and I feel like Disturbing Behavior was a serious version of Student Bodies. Yeah. In the sense that it was like, it was that stupid and over the top. And same with Jennifer's Body, which we're going to get into. But Students' Bodies just took it and made it hilarious. Yeah. And like the announcements and like how the jocks acted and the teachers. What got me was that fucking shop teacher and the horse
Yeah, that ongoing joke throughout the whole freaking movie too.
And then the principal and how creepy and weird he is, and like, we need to make sure young people don't become slutty. Like, it was like disturbing behavior of like trying to control these young people's behavior.
Right.
It's so funny. And then the waking up with the Wizard of Oz. I'm repeating myself, but I just thought that it was so well done. And then the two gentlemen in there that are disabled. So the blind kid, and then there's a kid in a wheelchair, right? So there's a gentleman in black and a kid in a wheelchair. There's one point where the blind kid says he's going to take the kid in the wheelchair somewhere because he gets something wrong in the English class, and the teacher basically shuns him. And he's trying to get him out the door, and as he's trying to get him out the door, he's hitting the walls and shit. And even though that is horribly offensive, you know, that shit probably happened.
Oh, yeah.
People that had disabilities in the 80s weren't treated that well in school. There's still struggles with people disclosing about their disabilities and people knowing how to work with them. And I feel like this was just calling it out. I didn't actually think it was being offensive. I thought it was like, yeah, man, like, this is a fucking shit show, and this is how people get treated. And I don't know. I really think this movie was ahead of its time and was really, really well made for a parody, and just really, really funny. And the acting in it, for them to keep straight faces during some of those scenes, I don't know how they
I don't know how they pulled that off at all.
Or like when the breather's in the locker room and he's like, yeah.
Oh, I got it in my hand now.
He's like walking through the fact that he's getting aroused. Oh,
it's so fucking creepy but hilarious.
It's just like, and I see, like, because it's basically making fun of those stupid locker scenes where you see from the creepers, the peeping Tom's perspective, and he's all like, yeah, it's like 1 minute later and it's all said and done.
Yeah.
Like,
and he's being so loud and yet no one knows he's there.
Right? And then doing the body count, like how it goes through the bodies and then the half body, like, oh my God. Too good. So I guess, do you think it's a good parody? I've kind of blown it out of this world, but do you have anything you want to add?
I think you, with your just absolute love for this, pretty much summed it all up. But yeah, this movie is great. It did such a good job with the parody, and it's I actually read somewhere that this was like a more over the top version of Scream, because Scream is a parody of slashers as well.
Yes.
So I was like, that makes absolute sense.
I gotta wonder how many movies were inspired from this film, but wouldn't say it. You know what I mean?
I almost want to say You're Not the Killer with the whole body count numbers when they do that. I never thought about it until we're talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, they did the same thing with the body count numbers.
Yep. Yeah.
So I bet you there's a lot that got inspired by this.
Yeah, it's so freaking funny. Oh my God. Like, horse head bookends. I would like a horse head bookend.
I'll make one in woodshop class for you. Please
do. I think that is the best. All right. So on to our next movie, also from the 80s, Night of the Creeps. It's a 1986 American science fiction horror comedy released on August 22nd, 1986. So just on the verge of going back to school, where Student Bodies was released. Where did I have it? Same time too, August. Yeah. So the whole back to school stuff. So in 1959, on board a spacecraft, two aliens race to keep an experiment from being released by the third member of the crew. The seemingly possessed third alien shoots the canister into space, where it crashes to Earth. A nearby college man takes his date to a parking spot. Oh, it's like Scott going parking. And sees a falling star and, of course, investigates. It's fucking you to a T. That is something you would say.
Yep.
Chance to get laid. Scott wants to go find a fucking falling star.
Well, I'd get laid first, then we'd go investigate.
No, you wouldn't. You would totally get distracted by the falling star.
Hey, Scott wants to go to Pound Town, okay?
Pound Town. One ticket to Pound Town. And it lands in the path of an escaped, criminally insane mental patient as his date is attacked by the axe-wielding maniac. The boy finds the canister from which a small slug-like thing jumps out into his mouth. Then we flash forward 27 years later in 1986. So what did you think of this, Scott?
This is 80s classic. Love, love, love this movie. It is. I'm trying to think. The movie Slither took a lot from this
That's
film.
what I was thinking. As I was looking at this and thinking of this film, I thought to myself, the whole slug thing, I feel like Slither watched this movie and was like, you know what? Or Slither.
Oh yeah.
Like it was a movie that watched it. The people that made Slither watched this and went, you know what? Fuck yeah, slugs.
Yeah. James Gunn even said that it was an homage. Slither was an homage
Awesome.
to Night of the Creeps because he
Awesome.
loved that movie. But yeah, this movie is just fantastic. It's got a great cast of characters. Tom Atkins, with some of the greatest lines that have made him like so well known, like "Thrill Me." It's Miller time, baby. And this is also directed by the guy that later directed Monster Squad. And there's even a nice little nod to Monster Squad when he found out he could make it. When he found out he was able to make the movie, he put in one of the stalls of the bathroom the Monster Squad rules. And but yeah, this is like the total college scenario.
It is. It's based in college, and unlike Student Bodies, which is based in high school with the shop class and the football games and the cheerleading and the parade, I feel like this is the next progression step up from that.
Yep,
you know, they talk about the
and
fraternities and sororities, which are a big thing in the States.
Yeah.
Like they're huge. And we have them up here. At the university I went to, there was a fraternity, there was a sorority, but there was only one.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that happens, but in the States there tends to be multiple one, and you pledge and there's this whole thing to get in and a kind of your own little like community that's within them. And then the fact that all this shit happens within fraternity brothers and shit like that, it almost like I feel like it's almost making fun of the like incestual relationship that seems to be created of like, we're brothers, we're sorority sisters, and we go down together. Like I feel like it's also like a commentary on that at the same time.
Oh, it absolutely is. And it's got like the stereotypes from high school just added into college because you got your jockey douchebag frat brothers, and like it's just then you got the nerdy guys that are joining this trying to join the fraternity, and that's how 27 years later these slugs come back because they are told for part of their pledge they had to break in and steal a dead body, like break into a morgue and steal a dead body. Well, they end up stealing a body that's been pretty much put in cryogenics, and that body was the body of the escaped mental patient that got infected by the slug back in the 50s.
And it's crazy shit going down.
Yep, and then the slug shoots out and pretty much infects others, and just more and more and more keeps spreading, and just kind of almost like a zombie virus where it just spreads and spreads and spreads, and more people are getting infected, and they turn these people into zombies. And it's so sci-fi, it's so horror, it's so 80s. But this is just like one of those will go down as a classic for the rest of the time because like this is one that everyone loves. And
it capitalizes well on what romantic relationships look like, preparing for the formal dance. Like where I think Student Bodies did a good job of her doing even that transformation from being like the ugly chick to showing up and looking all like sexy at the dance, which is something that they do in like She's All That and other movies since then, right? Like I feel like everything got stolen from Student Bodies, but anyway, this movie does it too in the sense that everything is based around the college life, thrown in some sci-fi.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, did you know there's 2 alternative endings?
Yes, I believe there was one where the dog is infected by the slug.
So there's 2 endings. So the film has 2 endings, one which was used for the film's theatrical release and the other is originally intended by the director. In the theatrical version, the dog who caused the bus accident returns and approaches Cynthia. As Cynthia bends down towards it, the dog opens its mouth and the slug jumps out at her. The original ending shows Chris and Cynthia standing in front of the burning sorority house with the camera moving to the street where the police cars are racing towards the burning building. The police cars race by the charred and zombified Cameron, who is shuffling down the street still smoking a cigarette, when he suddenly stops and falls to the ground. His head busts open and the slugs incubate inside his brain, scampered out, and slither towards a nearby cemetery, suggesting that the slugs have found new hosts to inhabit.
Yep, and then the searchlights appear from the
Yeah.
sky, revealing that the spaceship from the beginning of the film. Because that those aliens that you see in the very beginning of the film, 2-minute scene, then nothing for the rest of the movie. It was just
Well,
kind
it's
of like
true,
a way
right?
to get those slugs there, and that was it.
It was like, we need to figure out how we're going to get these slugs to the planet Earth. So I really like these two movies together. And I know they're not connected, but I just think that both of them do such a good job of capturing. One is a strict parody, obviously, and it really makes fun of, high school classes, how young people act, the idea of maybe he's just helping her find a bathroom and they're going off to bang, the creepy dude in the locker room, the breathing on the phone that we saw in like Black Christmas. And like, really, when you look back to that movie now, I feel like every time I watch Black Christmas and I listen to the dude breathing, I'm going to think of the breather from
Right.
Stupid Bodies. Like, it's to me, scary movie for Scream.
Yeah.
That's probably why I like it so much, because I love the scary movies and I fucking love Student Bodies. Like, I
can tell since we're talking about Night of the Creeps.
I'm still going back to it because I just feel like between Night of the Creeps and Student Bodies, and Night of the Creeps, I just feel like they took the college campus atmosphere and they just really used it to their advantage with the sororities, the fraternities, the relationships and the dating, the even the burning of the sorority. Like, I just think it's so smart. Like, I just think it's so smart to take something that is so big in that time of which fraternity you join, which sorority you join, and how that has influences to where you go in life.
Yep.
And just using that as this like scientific fucked up experiment that happens, I guess you could say experiment that happens, like, gone wrong.
Yeah, and it's like, and it's got this charm to it, like this movie does. It just has like this charm, and there's even like a very sad scene. I forget the guy's, I think it's JC, when he ends up getting infected by one of the slugs, because he leaves like a message when he gets infected for Chris to find, and it's kind of heartbreaking because they're like best friends, and like he dies in a horrible way, and because I think he ends up killing himself because of it.
Yeah.
And like that scene is very sad, like, but at the same time, this movie has a lot of charm to it as well. Like the characters.
Well, and he's the one that figures out the heat thing, right? And that's
Yep.
why they end up exploding it to kill the slugs. And yeah, it's a pretty emotional film. It's a really, and the name Night of the Creeps, you wouldn't think much of it.
Right. And one thing I do have to say, just like you told me, like you didn't say this on the show, I don't think, but like with you said with Student Bodies, like there'll be lines that you'll always remember from that movie forever.
Yeah.
That you'd be saying. And that's same thing with me with Night of the Creeps. Like,
yeah,
I mean, you got good news and bad news, girl. Your dates are here. What's the bad news? They're dead.
It's a great line, right?
Yeah,
and it's on the poster, isn't it? Like, yep. I'm looking at here, and the theatrical release poster has it on there.
Yeah, and that threw me line, because whenever he answers the phone, that's how he answers. Thrill me. I love that. I don't know why.
I feel like this movie also has. I feel like this movie created a lot of really good ideas, like using the sorority and the fraternities, using the idea of the dance, using the idea of, like, we've seen these tropes in movies since then.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I just think it was just a smart way of doing it. And I know that Black Christmas is based at a sorority as well, but it's definitely not the same feel. Like, it's just, it's a different kind of feel to it.
Yeah, because that focuses like just on the sorority, where this kind of focuses on the whole college life,
the whole experience in general.
Yeah.
Right. And anyway, so definitely captures the 80s to me, captures what school would look like in the 80s, because we were just bibis. Yeah. So we were not in school at this time, obviously. But I think when I look back to a time capsule, these films just totally like speak the 80s language.
Oh, they absolutely do.
So next is a film that is near and dear to my heart. And Scott just muted himself. That was really funny. I don't know.
To both of us. I don't know what happened there.
He muted himself and he had to talk. That was really funny. I don't know if he's going to cut this out or leave it in, because that was pretty comical.
I might just leave that in.
You might leave it in for the magic. So Scream 2 was released on December 12th, 1997. And it's so funny because I can clearly remember this movie coming out. And that's a long ass fucking time ago. That is 23 years ago. Like,
yeah,
that's nuts.
Yeah, I remember going to the theater Christmas Eve night watching this with my cousin.
Oh, when you had good taste and you used to like good movies.
Hey, I did say this is one of my favorites in the Scream franchise.
Not Scream 3.
Scream 3, we already talked about. It is Oscar worthy. I will agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
for
just
sure.
going to totally agree with that.
When people think Oscar film, they think Scream 3 for sure.
And Courtney Cox's haircut.
And her haircut. So Scream 3 takes over where Scream technically left off. Oh, sorry, Scream 2. So you got me all confused. Scream 2 takes over where Scream left off. So Nev Campbell Sidney has gone to college, I assume somewhere. I can't remember. I think it's in California. I think it's all based in California.
Yeah, I think everything, like the franchise is based in California.
Yeah, it's all based in California. And Randy has gone to the same school as her. She's made a new best friend named Haley, and she's kind of just living her life. Now, during this time, the Stab movie has come out, which is basically a retelling of the story of the Woodsboro murders. And she's kind of dodging all these really shady phone calls and people trying to talk to her. And Gail Weathers has written another book and is trying to, like, get her to do an interview with her.
Yeah, and got Cotton Weary, like, constantly trying to get her to do, like, TV shows with him. And
exactly, because he's been acquitted, but she's definitely kind of ruined his reputation. And the reason why we chose this movie is because it is really utilizes the college campus. All of it, with the exception of the opening scene, is filmed on the college campus.
Yeah, and they even, like, cover some of the college stuff that you don't really see much, like the theaters and the auditoriums and stuff like that for, like, plays.
Absolutely. So if we look at, after the opening scene, which, Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett, I love that scene. I do think
it's so iconic.
That would not happen in a theater. I don't think people would run around in costumes and shit like that. I actually don't think that would occur.
I think that would only happen if it was like an older film that people were such huge fans of, and it was like first time releasing it back in theaters.
Yeah, but what giveaway would give away full costumes?
Yeah, that one I would say people would probably just show up in their own costumes. They wouldn't be getting them there.
And like, give me a break. That was the only, but I get it. It's sensationalized for a movie, and that's fine. This is not a Scream 2 review, so we're not going to get deep dive into that because, if you want to listen to some great Scream reviews, check out 22 Shots and check out Exploding Heads. They will do a better job than we will. What we want to talk about is the school factor of it.
Right.
So the one connection is that these two people that are killed at the beginning are seniors from this school. So I think Ned Campbell and Haley and her boyfriend, Jerry Conley, I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I only remember it was Jerry Conley.
Are freshmen, and so is Mickey and Randy. They're all freshmen, I believe. They're in their first or second year?
Yeah, I think they're in their first year.
Yeah, they're freshmen. So it really does a well job of her waking up in the dorm, her going to classes. There's that debate and film class that Randy and Mickey have.
I love that debate.
There's the influence of the sororities and how they start specifically looking to try to recruit Neb Campbell. And the sorority girls are so your typical, like, pretty girls, like Rebecca Gayheart is in it. Yep. Is that how you say her last name?
I think so, yeah.
And she's like a complete bitch. And
but, like, she's trying to be so nice and suck up to Neve Campbell and
they're all wearing like these pastel fucking colors.
Yeah.
Like it looked like 1997 threw up all over this movie, right?
Right.
Like, and I loved like Sydney's look in this movie. I totally wanted that outfit. I was like, that will be my outfit one day. And like Jerry O'Connell's always super dressed professionally. Derek's his name.
Yes, and I love the cafeteria scene with him.
Oh my god, because he wants to be a doctor, and that's why he's so like always so polished.
Then he bursts into song. I think I love you.
Oh yeah, in the cafeteria.
What life is made of. Yeah, I love that scene.
He gives her his letters.
And that's a no-no in the fraternity.
So this really, we talked about Night of the Creeps using the sorority and the fraternities, and I really think like Scream got a lot of. I won't say that they were inspired from that, but I really see the relationship there, that they really marketed on the whole idea of a sorority and a fraternity and the rules that are set out in these and how that really conducted fate, on how, Mickey's character was kind of relying on the sorority or the fraternity to act the way they did when he gave the letters to Neve Campbell. And I almost feel like Mickey helped orchestrated that whole thing. Like, as the inside friend, he was aware of how all that stuff was going to go down. Or even when she's in the library and she's doing the instant messaging, like, did that not take you back to like
Oh
old
my
school?
God,
Like,
yeah.
colleges would have had instant messaging, but you could only message people that were on the same server at that time as you.
Yep.
Like, it was just so well done. In that kill scene where he's in the middle of college campus and he gets pulled into the van. I don't know.
Oh, with Randy?
With Randy.
Oh, man, that was a heartbreaking scene for me because Randy is my all-time favorite character.
I love the line where they say, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And he says, "Showgirls." I think that is so 90s and so funny. But what people have sometimes criticized is that he gets pulled into the van and no one would see. That campus setting reminded me of the university I went to. And it was pretty busy and people are pretty self-absorbed.
Yeah.
Honestly, something like that could probably happen and people wouldn't notice.
Yeah, because like it's kind of like the whole hide in plain sight type thing. And when you're out in the open, people don't expect to see that and they're not looking out for it. So like they are either looking down or they're chatting with their friends, they're going off and doing their own thing. And yeah, someone could get pulled in by a van real fast like that and no one would know.
And typically, university college students are very self-absorbed. I know I certainly was. Like, I was too busy thinking about what exams I had or what social event I was going to go to or how I was going to change the world or how I was mad at the man or whatever the case was at the time. And I'm just trying to rush from one class to another. I can remember I would have a class end and I would have 10 minutes to get to the next one. And yes, it's a little silly that they walk by with a boombox, so 90s again, on their shoulder.
Yeah.
But, you know, that scene I really didn't think was so unbelievable. And I think it just utilized the busyness and distractedness of college campuses really well.
Yeah, because like you said, like everyone is self-absorbed and they're all distracted. Like when you're in college, you're distracted.
Yeah,
There's
you're not
so much
thinking
going on.
about other people.
Yeah.
You're really not. You're actually most people are actually quite self-absorbed in general 90% of the time. So that I think being in college and university just amplifies it. And I think you're right. The theater scene of her doing the behind the scenes of theater and her practicing this play, and then she's running around the dark college campus at night and trying to figure out where to go. And she goes to the theater because she hears the music playing and she thinks it's a dress rehearsal happening. Like, what a great utilization of a college campus.
Yeah, like that, and that scene, like that ending scene in that theater and stuff like that, it's a great setting for like that final act.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I don't know if we have anything else to add on Scream 2 when it comes to the college campus.
Nope, I think they just nailed that campus culture really, really well.
Awesome. Finally, we agree on something. So the next set I want to that we're going to talk about is Disturbing Behavior. So Disturbing Behavior was released on July 24th, 1998. It's a 1998 teen science fiction psychological horror film.
And this one also very close to August, so close to the back to school.
Very much so. It's funny that Scream came out in December. I don't know if that was just because of when they could release it. And I remember there was that whole script was leaked beforehand.
Well, I know in December is like usually a good release window because that is when people are out shopping for Christmas and they may want to go see a movie. That is when like they know they can bring in the big bucks either during a summer blockbuster or in December.
And I believe the original Scream came out in December too.
Yep.
Right. So anyway, back to Disturbing Behavior. So basically James Marsden, the heartthrob of the 90s, shows up, and him and his family moved to this middle of nowhere island town that they have to take a ferry to get to, which was very good that they set that plot up at the beginning because it made a little bit more sense as the movie went through. And he realizes that there's some clear clicks, which I really enjoyed when his friend pointed out all of the clicks.
They nailed the clicks, and the description for every one of them too.
And he chose music for each of them.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool.
So there was the Blue Ribbon crew, which is, the antagonist. But they come across as the good kids that do all the right things. There's the skaters, the nerds, which I thought was weird that they didn't bring the nerds into the Blue Ribbon crew. Because weren't they kind of the same? Because the nerds were the ones that studied hard.
Well, I think the reason is because the Blue Ribbons are also basically they're the preps. They're the
Yeah, and they're
popular
good-looking.
crowd. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
the good-looking popular crowd where the nerds, especially back then, were shunned for just being too nerdy, too involved with what they want to do. So
Mhm.
I think that's why the blue
Like
ribbon.
almost they were too smart.
Yeah,
And it would have been, I think it would have been really interesting if they used the nerds. And if this movie was remade, I bet you they would use the quote unquote nerds as the protagonists.
guaranteed.
Because really they would be it's interesting that they use the grunge kids as the protagonists. Because
the stoners were paranoid, but they knew like their paranoia was real.
yeah, and it's like they knew what was going on, and I guess they're close to being the bottom feeders. Like even when the character that's talking about all the subcultures go through, they're looking at the different groups. So it's like, here's the ranking that people are in: the jocks, so it was the jocks, the blue ribbons,
The greasers.
the greasers, because they were the guys that loved auto.
Yep.
And then, am I missing another one?
Yeah, there was the skaters, the nerds,
Skaters.
and
Yeah.
the one that they did not, which kind of shocked me for the '90s, that they did not mention, goths.
Yeah, and I guess maybe they were kind of the goths, but not really.
Yeah, like-
But yeah, I agree. They were totally missing the trench coat mafia people. But did this come out after Columbine? It
this
did,
was
because
before.
Columbine, was it?
I think-
Okay.
I think it was before because I think Columbine was '99.
Okay. So that could, I was going to say, if it came out after Columbine, I could see why they did that. But yeah, I agree. I think that's odd that they kind of blended. What I think they tried to do is make the grunge kids. So Katie Holmes was part of that group as well too.
Yeah.
Part of these, like the smart ones that kind of see what's going on. And I just felt like they did a really good job of illustrating the bullying that would happen, the clickiness of who you know and who you socialize with and where your social ranking is. And if anything, that one scene where they break down who everyone is associated with, I thought was just awesomely done.
Yeah, they did the representation like of the cliques freaking perfectly, and like even the teachers, and they even brought in the janitor that's working down in the basement, and like they brought in a lot of the like. This felt like this is probably the most high school feeling horror film that we're talking about on our list.
I agree 100%. I really felt like this took my grade 9 year and presented it on film. Minus, I didn't have a crazy teacher doctor that was implanting shit into people's brains.
Right.
But it totally felt like I was back in high school with those cliques. And I think it talked about the struggle that those cliques give you and the bullying that happens.
Oh, yeah.
And not to get too much into this, but we all know that bullying is worse now than it was then. And the reason why it's worse now is because it doesn't stop.
Yeah, like it gets taken home now because of social media
And stuff like that. And you know, that getting beat up in the cafeteria and people looking the other way or people calling you a loser, that shit really affected you in high school. Like I say that from someone who was painfully bullied at times. It was extremely hard. And it's horrible, the labels that people get, but I really feel like this movie captured, you know, as much as it was a little cheesy, James Marsden's character of kind of coming back and trying to fight back. Though I did think it was a little silly that he basically like pieced out on his parents and like basically left. They left and went on the ferry and took off. And
right.
You know, I did like though how the janitor drives off the cliff at the end and kind of brings everybody with him. I thought that was kind of
I love that. And that was William Sadler, who is he's in VFW and like he's such an iconic horror character.
He is. He's very iconic. You're right.
And I do love the one thing about James Marsden. He does the whole new kid in high school, not sure where he fits in yet. He plays that role really well because you get those stoner guys, like the one played by Nick Stahl.
Yeah.
Like he represents that type of person that's like, oh, here's a new guy that doesn't fit in. I'm going to be the one welcoming him. And that is pretty accurate to like high school because I was the guy that would welcome the new guys and try to like befriend them when they don't have a clique or anything like that already established. And like, yeah, that was totally me. I was the stoner kid that would do that.
That I could see that being totally you. And you know what? You would try to get a gun too to go home and protect yourself from your parents that are trying to send you off to be like brainwashed into whatever. And even the part where that really hot chick is over tutoring his sister in math, which was obviously a setup. And she comes out of the the fucking bathroom with her shirt undone and like feeling up on her breasts and shit, and she's trying to come on to him and stuff.
And I like how like that is like what triggers them to like kind of go crazy is like their hormones kick in.
Absolutely. And then she's supposed to be good, like she's saying bad, and smashing her head against the mirror. And I think, you know, not to get too deep here, I think that really does show the conflict of young women in high school. I became sexually active in high school. I have no problem talking about that. But let me tell you, it's very different for a young woman choosing to become sexually active in high school.
Oh, yeah.
Than it is for a young man. I lost my virginity when I was 16, and I lost it to my boyfriend that I was with for some time. And it was a very calculated decision when we decided to have sex. It wasn't a spur of the moment thing. We used protection, all that kind of stuff. And like, neither one of us really enjoyed it, right? Like, let's be real. Right. We were 16. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing, right? Like, it was fine, but neither one of us like were good. It was just awkward and uncomfortable. So we tried it a couple more times and stuff, and eventually we broke up. And I remember when I started dating my next boyfriend, he just assumed I would have sex with him, quote unquote, because I've done it already.
Yep.
And I don't think I would never go back and be like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. Like, I understand the concept. Well, if you've already had sex, it's probably more likely that you're going to want to a second time. Absolutely. But it's just, it was very interesting how, I don't know if it made me more desirable that I had sex or less desirable, because guys wanted chicks that had sex, but then they judged them afterwards. Yeah. So it was a really interesting, and I feel like that, her hitting her head against the mirror and being like, bad, I'm bad, and covering up her shirt. And I almost thought he was going to get like accused of rape or something like that. Like, I thought she was going to go home and say that he came on to her. Right. Or something. That's where I thought that was going to go. I'm surprised it didn't. Probably if it was made now, that's where
it would probably hit on that.
Right? 20 years later, that's totally where that would have gone. And I'm glad it didn't. I don't think it needed to go there. Because I think that would have been no point to the plot. So, but I think it was just interesting how it captured that, and it captured that, you know, high school sexual relationship, and the one guy that's like, why won't you go out with me? Like the captain.
Oh, the hyper aggressive jock.
Oh my God. Right. Like, oh, I'm going to have you no matter what. Like, you know, that happens. Right.
Yeah.
And
it does.
Right. And Katie Owens being like, fuck you. Like, it was just a really good play on high school. And of course, you know, when they drive off the cliff at the end, you're a little bit sad because you think that one character has passed away. And actually, that throughout the movie, I kind of wondered if that character had actually been transformed or if he was just faking it.
Oh, the buddy?
Yeah, the buddy. Nick's character.
Nick Stahl, yeah.
Nick Stahl.
He was transformed.
Yeah, and you get clarification at the end, right?
Yeah, but like it does make you wonder that toward like in the middle of the movie, like maybe he's just kind of infiltrating the clique type deal.
Mm-hmm. That's what I honestly thought, and I love how, you know, they go off from being like that car jock guy, which totally looked like a car jock guy, and then showing up with like, you know, a blazer and shit, and how that was
with like the leather jacket and
right, like, oh my gosh, it was just so well done. So yeah, and yet again, it's 90s cheese, but I think when it comes to reflecting 90s culture and how it presented authority and how it presented, like, you know, what basically authority thought good kids would look like, it was a pretty accurate presentation of the 90s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So the next one is The Faculty. So The Faculty was released on December 25th, 1998. So same year.
On Christmas Day.
Now, Scott, you're going to have to discuss this one because I could not find it to rent in Ontario.
Which is crazy to me.
I know.
Because this is, once again, just like disturbing behavior. Total 90s. 90s puked all over this movie. But this one is basically the 90s version of an homage to Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Okay.
Starring Usher, Elijah Wood. It's got like it's just got so many actors in this, because this is obviously the time after Scream where it's just like famous actor after famous actors joining horror films.
Mm-hmm.
But this one is pretty much about these aliens that have taken over the teachers. and that's why, hence the name of the faculty. The teachers get turned into these aliens that pretty much just look like themselves, but are actually creatures that are trying to kill and capture students and turn them as well. And eventually, but this one I feel like it touches on the high school. This one focuses more on the teacher's perspective in a way, which I thought was very unique. And it also revolves a lot around the football stadium, the football field, the high school, because a lot of events happen out on the football field, which, once again, you don't really see that in any of the films we've talked about in this. But yeah, it's got the cliques, because in this one, all the cliques, individuals from each of the cliques are pretty much forced to join together to fight the teachers. You got your nerdy kid who's Elijah Wood, you got your jock who is Usher, you got your preppy girl, you got your stoner, and you got your trailer trash. You got all these people that are completely different from each other, and it shows because they are constantly bickering back and forth and making fun of each other and talking smack about one another, but they're forced to work together to overtake this issue, which I thought, once again, shows the cliques, but shows the cliques working together, which I thought was a very cooler perspective. And yeah, and I also think that the perspective with the teachers, you're going into different classes with each of these teachers. So you get your science classes, you get your math classes, and
do the teachers match the personality? Would you look at the science teacher and be like, yep, that's a science teacher, all right?
Yeah. I'm trying to remember who the hell it was. Jon Stewart. Everyone knows Jon Stewart from The Late Show and all that stuff, and this is his one and only acting role, and he looks the part of a science teacher.
Really?
Yeah, he does a good job.
He's part of the alien group, right?
Yep, he's one that eventually gets turned into one of the aliens. And he has a pretty violent death too for a 90s film. And this is just all around a fun movie. I just feel it hits that high school feel perfectly for the 90s again. The 90s seem to have a lot of really focused high school horror films.
And I feel maybe because the 90s was just when we started to have those skater groups and the jocks and the grudge and it really started to have more than just your preppies and your nerds and your greasers. You started to see a more variety of different groups. And I like how this used the idea of authority coming in and being taken over by aliens and having this control, and then students rebelling against authority in the faculty. So even though I didn't see the movie, I obviously read up on it because I wanted to try to have some understanding. And I agree. I think Scream did start this idea that you could be a television star or a R&B singer on the rise and go into a horror film like Katie Holmes in Disturbing Behavior.
Yeah.
You could start to build this repertoire on something that was familiar and have this captured audience of high school students that really connected with what you were sharing at the time.
Yep, and I think with getting those popular stars, it is what got a lot of people to see some of these films back in that time too.
Absolutely.
You get fans of Usher who would just go see it because of Usher.
Well, and that was after My Way came out in 97, which was a huge, that song was huge, and everyone knew who he was, and and he was a sex status, he's a good looking man.
Yeah.
And that's going to get people to go. Katie Holmes, our good friend Tim Davis's all-time girlfriend.
Yep.
So these are people that were hot at the time and smart to put them in movies.
Yeah, exactly. And at this time, it wasn't a in the 80s, it seemed like a lot of the actors that got their start there, for the most part, feel kind of ashamed for admitting that they were in those horror films. Where in the 90s, these stars are more just hell yeah, I'm jumping onto this, because horror was on the rise again. And it was hot,
right? And then you had these teen flicks, what horror did during that time, and why I think a lot of people who like 80s horror don't like 90s horror, besides obviously, yes, there is some clear quality differences. I'm not going to sit there and say there isn't. But I think for someone like myself and Scott, who were 14, 15, 16, we related to these movies at the time. We were seeing our high school cafeterias on campus. We were seeing those weird ass teachers that we didn't want to deal with. We were feeling that angst and that relationship development and being pissed off with our parents and having these people that were real dicks to us because we liked grunge music or wore all black, and we represented with that.
Yep.
And they took that population group and they marketed towards them well. So even though we'll walk out and be like, man, maybe Urban Behavior isn't the best movie in the entire planet, or you know what, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer really isn't the best film, it captured how we were feeling at the time. And it allowed us to connect. And that's why these movies have a following for, you know, entry-level horror fans who got into that teen scream phase or phase. And then we see the same thing happening now with movies like Truth or Dare.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what that is. And if you watch those movies, they're very millennial talk. They talk about like bigger purposes and doing better good and being more self-aware. They're not about the clicks as much as the 90s were, because that was our high school experience.
Right, exactly.
Like if you tried too hard and you cared too much, it looked bad.
Yes.
Now it looks bad if you don't care. And that's why horror movies today are focusing on that to attract a younger audience. I feel like I just got real deep there with that conversation.
You
But,
did.
like, but I feel like that's why, right? And that's what movie producers do at that time. They figure out what is going to bring in a mass audience.
Yep,
You know,
exactly.
and these movies were made at that time to bring in Scott and I and other people in this age range.
Yep, absolutely. Like I couldn't add anything else to that. You pretty much nailed it.
I don't know, I kind of went on a rant. So anyway, so our last movie, which takes place in 2020 and is a Canadian film.
Yay! I did not realize this was Canadian.
I only realized it when I did some research, and it was released at TIFF, which is the Toronto International Film Festival in 2019, but it was not given a US release until January 2020, is Extracurricular. So Extracurricular follows 4 students who appear to be picture perfect. So they're in appear. So we have one young lady who is a competitive dancer who is trying to dance to get into school. The other 3 students are honor roll A students, part of the yearbook club, part of the debate club, on the prom committee club, all those different clubs. And as we know now, schools are definitely built upon of how much you can engage. We just talked about millennials. And I work at a university and I work with a lot of millennials, and they get a really bad rap. And I feel like they get a bad rap because the same reason baby boomers did, for the same reason Gen Xers did, and for the same reason that Gen Yers did, is because you're always going to get a handful of shit in every generation.
Oh, yeah.
But what I will tell you about millennials is that they are definitely more well-versed in knowledge. They tend to know a lot more stuff because they have access to the internet and know how to use it to gather information. They do tend to not have the same patience, so they don't like the slow 80s slashers or slow burns that we would have enjoyed in the 80s as much, because they don't have the attention span for it. And they tend to care. It tends to be very cool to care and to be involved. So they want to do stuff for environmental change. They're very passionate about Black Lives Matter. They're very into the feminist movement that has continued to happen. And nothing is wrong with that. Like, we had the baby boomers starting this shit back in the 60s and 70s, okay? Like, this is going on.
This is just the new generation carrying the torch.
Exactly, right? So, but of course with that you get your faults with every generation, right? So because of this lack of attention to detail, sometimes helicopter parenting, or, you know, lack of patience, millennials get typecasted. So the millennials in this are definitely individuals who are overachievers, come across as being the overall perfect student, but they engage in these nonsensical killings.
Yes.
So
that they are like fascinated by it and obsessed by it and like plan it out. Like they plan it out almost to like the Ocean's 11 style planning of robbing the casino. Like they do blueprints, they have meetings talking about how they're going to do this, when they're going to do this. Like it is all methodical. While they are these smart, like invested, busy kids, they are very mean-spirited too, which is kind of creepy.
Well,
in a
they're
way.
narcissists.
Yeah.
And I think that's tying on the dark side of any generation, and what has been shown from millennials are the biggest criticism of them. They're narcissists. They think of themselves. They don't have the attention span for things. But I would argue baby boomers are just as narcissists, or we would be in a lot of the situations that we're in. As lots of good as baby boomers and other generations have done, which they have, we also have people that have done lots of not good. So, you know, I think what this movie does really well is, one, it builds the characters up so you see the two images they present. There's this nonsensical thrill killing that they do, which are, you're right, so staged out, no mercy, very graphic. Like in one of the scenes, there's a rolling around in a barn, and it's extremely intense killing where their plan goes wrong. And it really shows how they've taken this killing, and we don't ever really find out why they're doing it. I don't ever get the reason why.
No, I think the only reason we get is because they like it.
They like it, and I think they enjoy the media from the attention
I'll say
from
the attention from the media. Yep.
Right, and then the media. So the cops are trying to figure out what's going on. They can't believe that something can be this cold and this calculated, and these kids get off of it. And there's one girl that seems to start having second doubts. She seems to be floating on the area that she may not want to continue doing this. She's developing a romantic relationship with another female, and they agree to do this murder on Halloween night. They think that that's going to be a pinnacle, is doing a murder on Halloween night. And they plan this murder. They pick out the couples. As Scott said, they kind of like scope it. And then everything that can possibly go wrong goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually start to turn on each other.
Yeah.
There's a scene, so this is spoilers, there's a scene where things have gone horribly wrong at this murder, and one of the characters have been severely injured. And the good character, the character that is going to, what we suspect, probably going to give up killings after this, or possibly rat them out, which I thought she was kind of on the verge of when I saw it.
Like you could tell she was thinking about it.
Right? And her friend suffocates her in the back seat silently.
Mm-hmm.
And suffocation is a very intimate form of murder. You basically have to prevent someone from breathing, and your body natural reaction will be to fight.
Yeah.
So you'll shake, you'll push, and she was so injured that it was hard for her to do that. And you have to keep suffocating them and then feel their body go lifeless.
Yeah. Intimate is probably the best description for that, because that is very cold to do.
Very cold to do. And it shows the narcissists of this one character. And then through a series of other events, the two other gentlemen are killed through events that happen. Parents are killed in the process because of how things go down. And the ending leaves you angry, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Oh, it is such a downer ending.
You really don't feel like justice has been had. And, you know, I guess I'm not selling it too well, because if you like that happy endings, you may not like this movie. But the acting in it is so good that by these four main characters.
Yeah, like they are really, really good actors that sell their parts. Like, and one thing I did want to bring up too is this methodical planning that they go through and scoping out of their scenario, like to get everything ready, fits perfectly with those types of characters, because they are the type that love to have plans and like a focused schedule.
Well, and that's this generation, right? Like I can tell you this from working with university students. All the students I know engage in a billion activities, and their lives are scheduled. And it happens from young ages, right? Like as we've seen with COVID, we've had people forced to stay home. People are constantly on the go. You have dance practice, you have soccer, you have ballet, you have piano recitals. You have people that are scheduled every day after school. Right. And during school, they do all these different extracurricular activities. Like I remember when I was in high school, I worked a part-time job. I was on yearbook committee, I think, one year. I did some scorekeeping, and I did a handful of other things. When I was a little bit younger, I was in drama club. I was doing morning announcements. I would do like phone answering during lunchtime. So I did activities too, and my parents would have me in piano lessons and swimming lessons, but it would only be 2 to 3 activities after hours. You know, my parents didn't want me out every night of the week. Like, they wanted me to have time with my friends and to study. And I feel like this generation, what we're seeing more is more structured activities. You know, we've gone to overstructuring, which would make sense why these young people overstructure everything, including their killings
Yeah.
and their other stuff that they're engaging in. Like, I think it's just a really smart play on the current environment that we provide students, the idea that you have to be in as many extracurriculars as possible to be successful, to also be a straight A student. And I say this with working at a university. Like, I'm not just talking
Well,
out of my
you
ass.
have hands-on experience.
Right? I am one, so basically I run a course at university for all of our co-op students. So our co-op students have to apply to get into the program that I teach. And I do this mandatory co-op job search program for engineering, science, English, like over 20 or 37 different academic degrees.
And I think accounting is in there too, right?
Accounting's in there as well. Yep. So business, whatever. And students need high 90s to get in. Like, we're not taking students that are just scraping by.
Right.
You need 90s to get in. Plus, you know, oh, you have experience. You've done this, you've done that. And then they have to compete for jobs. And I have some engineering kids that have been designing apps and other things since they were in grade 8.
That's crazy.
Like, because it's not enough. It's always got to be more and more and more. So I think this movie, I love the kills. I love the horror aspect of it. I love the planning of the murders. I love how much I hated all 4 characters.
Yes.
With the one girl having a little bit of empathy for. And I love how pissed off I was at the end. But I also love how well they represent current high school culture and what the expectations are.
Yeah, because this one does nail it. Like, this is like probably the best modern day showing of high school.
Absolutely, hands down. And it's a 2020 release for US and Canada. I know that Mark Nato said it wasn't, but when I checked out the dates, you could not access it outside of film festivals until 2020.
Yeah.
So
both of us are counting it.
We're counting it as a 2020 watch. If I cannot watch it besides going to TIFF.
So fight us, Mark Nato.
Fight us. Fight us on this. So that completes our segment for back to school. So hopefully you guys, if you have kids and they're going back to school, good luck, whatever choices you are making as a parent. I know it's not easy right now. And if, I don't know, I don't think any kids listen to our podcast, but if you're going back to school, good luck.
Right.
I hope you enjoy going back to school. Scott, did you like going back to school? Was that something you looked forward to?
To an extent, yes, because I was always excited to see like my friends that I only seen when I was in school and stuff like that. Though I didn't hate school, but at the same time, I didn't care about the social gatherings.
So Scott autoplaned for half of that. Like,
Oh,
we've both been. It's like we're like, talking like this. So anyways, Scott likes school is what we found out, ladies and gentlemen, in case you're curious. I actually had a horrible time in school. From a grade 2 to grade 5 was hell for me. I used to make myself sick going to school every day.
Oh, wow.
It was not a good experience for me. I was bullied very badly. Really, really affected me later on in life. But come grade 6 and 7, I made some really, really good friends who I'm still friends with today. And that changed everything for me. And I definitely have some really fond memories to look back in school and people that I really enjoyed, but school was very tough for me. And it's funny because I now work at a post-secondary institution. So I live, eat, breathe academic stuff. And probably one of the best things I ever did, I decided in university that I wanted to be a career counselor at a university. And my whole goal was to work towards that. And I've been doing it for the past 5 years. And it's been really rewarding. So I wasn't the best student, but I like to think that I'm a good career counselor and a good instructor. At least I hope I am.
and from what I know of you and like when I talk to you while you're doing some of your work and stuff like that, I think you are.
Thank you, Scott. That means a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it. So our last segment, as we know, is Out of the Dark. And I guess what we were going to talk about is the movie theater experience, because I have gone back to the theaters. And Scott is still waiting for theaters to open in Michigan. Is there any word on what that's looking like, my friend?
Not that I have noticed. Like, I think I think we're still just kind of stuck in this phase with the restaurant openings and haven't moved forward just because of our rising cases. And I know theaters and gyms, I think we're in the next phase. And
Okay.
they were going to open, but then the cases started happening and she goes, "Nope, we're shutting this, we're stopping this now. Not chancing it," which I completely understand. Like with everything that's going on, yep,
Yeah.
that makes absolute sense. Though it freaking sucks because I so miss the theater experience.
Yeah, and I don't want to rub this in your face, and I'm not trying to, but I have been back at the theaters,
Yeah.
and so theaters opened here the last week of July, beginning of August, and it was a gradual opening. They were only open 3 nights a week. So Tuesday is our cheap night. So Tuesday is cheap night, so everything's half off, like admission wise. And then Saturdays and Fridays are regular price. And a lot of it was like the Jaws, and they were doing Jurassic Park. So those were $5 tickets to go see those. And we started to have slowly new releases. So we've had 6 new releases so far, including Unhinged and Peninsula. New Mutants is coming out this week in Tenant. And as well as we've had the SpongeBob movie. And some other comedies like Target One and some other stuff has come out as well. So when I went to the theater for the first time, I was so excited. The person I was with was making fun of me so hard because I basically ran to the theater door, opened it.
You and I, like, we would, if we were doing that together, we'd both be the ones.
I swear.
We'd be knocking each other out of the way. Give me that first. Give me that
I
first.
was like, a whole new world. Like, so I had my mask on because in Ontario, how it's working right now is that you purchase your tickets online and you show up at the theater. They ask that you don't come super early, and you go in, you put on your mask, you show your on your phone, you show the tickets and your assigned seats. You go in, you can still get popcorn, drinks, nachos, hot dogs. We serve alcohol at theaters here in Ontario.
Yep, a
So
couple of ours do too.
Yeah, so if you're of age, you can purchase alcohol as well. Our VIP theaters, our special effect theaters, and our regular theaters are open. And yeah, so you get your snacks, you get your drinks, and you go on in. So they got rid of, I don't know, I can't remember when I went to the movies with you, Scott. Did they have like a table where they had like flavoring for the popcorn and the straws, and you would have to get that and fill up? Yeah, because you could fill up your own pop and stuff like that.
Yeah, you could
right?
fill your own pop. You had like your different flavored salts and flavorings for your popcorn that you can go over and shake on your popcorn, and like your own butter dispenser and stuff.
Yes. Okay. So they got rid of all that because obviously you can't be touching that and, touching other things, right?
Right.
That's not COVID friendly. So, but I like it because now you don't have a fucking mess everywhere because people are pigs and that shit would be all over the tables and it would be fucking disgusting, to be quite honest. So you go into the theater, you have your assigned seats, you sit in your assigned seats. They will send someone to kind of just check and make sure everyone's spread out in the theater like they should be. So they do ask you to wear your mask unless, of course, you are consuming food. Obviously, if you are consuming food, you're not going to be wearing a mask. That doesn't make any sense.
It'd be difficult to try to drink through a straw.
Yes, it would be very challenging. So you take off your mask and you consume the popcorn and stuff. So I went to the 4DX theater, which is the action seats, which was fucking sick, but man, was it a wild ride, right? So it's like, it literally was like a roller coaster. Like there was points where I almost flew out of my seat because the seat was moving so much, right? And that was for Peninsula, and there was some really crazy chase scenes in it. There were a couple other people in the theater. They were spaced out from us. It was fine. It was honestly felt like a normal theater experience because when I went to see Pet Sematary, there was about the same number of people in the theater.
Right.
Like it didn't feel that different, for the exceptions of movies that I've gone to on opening night that are big. Like, and the last movie I went to where it was really hard to find a seat, I think was it was part of a really big series, It Chapter 2.
Oh yeah.
Like that was the last time I went to a film where I was like, wow, there's a lot of people here.
Right. Yeah, I think
to be honest with you.
Surprisingly, Midsommar for me.
Really, there's a lot of people.
Crowd for us. Like, yeah.
That's really cool. So, and then when I went for Unhinged, same experience. You order your tickets online, you show up at the movie theater. So obviously the video game systems and stuff like that aren't currently running either, but they still had concessions. They still had all that stuff. So I will tell people this: A, it's not a scary experience, especially if you live in the province of Ontario. We currently, as of today, have 108 cases or 133 cases in all over the province. of 14 million people. So we're
Yeah.
doing pretty good. It's, if you're really nervous, bring some hand sanitizer with you, but they do sanitize and wipe down the seats. Everyone is social distanced effectively. The washrooms are cleaner than they've ever been. I personally did not have any concerns. I plan on going back to the theater many a times. I loved being back in the surround sound. I loved eating my popcorn like I was an angry deer feeding from my own hands. And I just have nothing negative to say about it. I love that. You know what I love the most, Scott, is that when we sat in our seats, no one else could just come into the theater and be like, a whole fucking theater's empty. I'm going to go sit right beside them.
Yeah.
And that happened when we saw Gretel and Hansel.
Yep.
Like, so Scott and I, like, it feels so long ago now because it was fucking February, but
Yeah.
we sat, I want to say, in the upper balcony.
Yeah, we were close. I think we were like 5 or 6 rows from the far back.
Right?
Like right up against the wall.
And I swear to God, everyone in that fucking movie theater sat, there was maybe other, like, I don't know, 15 other people in the theater, maybe. I'm probably being generous. I don't even think it was that many. And they all fucking sat near us, and it was fucking annoying.
And they were all talking.
Oh, and they talked throughout the entire fucking film. And now, mind you, I get it. It's a burn. But still. And I felt like here, I'm like, I don't have to fucking worry about that right now. No matter what,
Right.
I have my seats. And these are my seats. And no one can come and take my seats. And no one's going to sit their ass by my seats. And no one's going to sit fucking in front of me so I can't see, or behind me and kick my chair. And I loved it. Loved it. So, Scott, how do you feel about going back to the movie theater after you've heard my experience?
Well, before your experience, I was already planning on going day one when that shit happens, when this opens up here. Because you know me, I'm just like you. Theater experience, I love it. I want to support it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, hearing how Ontario is taking care of it, and how they're doing the social distancing and everything else, it sounds like they are doing exactly what needs to be done to keep people safe. The social distancing will keep people from being near each other, which will help keep it down. And the fact that they're having you wear the masks in the theater as well, that's very smart.
Unless you're eating.
Yeah, I'll say unless you're eating, obviously.
And they don't come in and check, in all fairness. Like,
Right.
they tell you to wear it, but
knowing
they know
you
you're
could,
also sitting down and eating and drinking. They're not coming in to check to see if you have it on. It's just if you get up to use the restroom, you obviously have to have it on.
yeah, I was gonna say, but knowing you Canadians, they'd say to do it, you guys would.
Well, you know what? No one did, because we were all eating. And honestly, even when I was done eating, I didn't put it on.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't feel the need to, because when I'm in a restaurant, we can sit in restaurants right now, not have a mask on, but when we get up, you have to put it on.
Yep, that's how it is for us too.
Right? And to me, there's no difference in a theater.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So I think it depends on your comfort level, but definitely walking around. And yet again, it's a fucking mask for like 5 minutes while you take your washroom break. Like, we're not talking about a big deal here.
Right. Though I was gonna say that'll probably be the difference between you and my state. Because we got the freedom waivers that are just like saying these masks are impeding their rights, blah, 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 blah.
Well, we have Canadians saying that too. I just think that in public, Canadians are still very much British. And I say that pretty confidently, that we still, at least if you're white, you have this British influence where you're polite in public and you're disrespectful at home.
Yeah.
Like, there's racism in Canada. There's lots of fucking shit in Canada. Like, we have KKK in Canada. Like, it's not like KKK is an American problem.
Oh,
It
no.
exists in Canada too. It's more hidden. That's all. We don't have fucking marches down the street. And if we
Right.
did, people like are very much shunned for it. No one is like, oh yeah, high-fiving people. Like, I saw one dude in the area that I live, one dude that had the Confederate flag. And everyone used to just stare and like judge or say things like it on his car. And eventually I don't see that dude anymore. Because, and so I do feel like there's also like, no one wants to wear a mask. Okay. No one's like, oh my God, yeah, I get to wear a piece of fabric over my face, but it's so not a big deal. And
No.
you know what? Movies, we need people to go out to movies, because there were some part-time kids working there. There was a manager working there. Christian's wife works for Cineplex. And I want to support the frontline people. I want to support the people that work in accounting, the people that work in advertising, everyone that goes into making those cinemas run. I want to support right now. That's how I feel.
Same here.
That is what I am choosing to do. And I know I'm just one person. I realize that. But I want people to know that in my experience, I felt very safe. I was not concerned. And I think that if you are concerned, bring hand sanitizer, bring gloves. You can keep your mask on during the entire thing, and the theaters aren't overcrowded.
Yep, and that's what I'm hoping for that day to come here, because like I said, I will be day one at that theater, getting my big old freaking American-sized tub of popcorn.
Now that is the one thing I do miss. Like, you guys have the bomb diggity snacks.
Yeah, like our theater concessions, just no comparison. They're just ridiculous. I mean, we have a freaking Skittles machine in that one theater.
Oh my God, I know. I still remember. I have pictures of it.
Yeah.
You know what I think about often is that candy buffet in the mall. What happened?
I bet
to that
you
candy
do.
Buffet? Is it still there? Because that's a COVID nightmare.
Yeah,
Like, how
I
do you-
bet you it's
Like, do you get your own spoon and spoon out your own candies? Like, how would that even work?
yeah, I bet you that is not there right now.
Yeah, like,
Things are going to be different when things are fully back to normal.
because malls are open there, right? Or no?
I believe so, because most retail stores are allowed to be open now, so I would
Okay.
assume the malls are. I haven't been to the mall because pretty much I've saved the mall experience for when you come to visit now, because it's just kind of a fun thing for
I
us to
can't
do.
wait for 2022 when we go to the mall and go to Hot Topic again.
Oh, I know, right? In 2023, when I get to go to Toronto finally.
Oh man, I know. Like, the years are getting later and later because things just get more fucked up and fucked up.
Yeah, I'll say just everything just getting pushed back and pushed back. So we're just kind of like, well, we'll see what happens, I guess. Just kind of ride
Right.
this wave. But-
Right, just ride this wave, the wave of 2020.
The wave of COVID. Let's keep on riding it till it finally crashes.
Right, but
And yeah, with a theater experience though, I am very curious because you had assigned seating like before COVID too with your theater.
yes, only in some. So the general theaters were not like that. The general theaters where I saw Unhinged, which was assigned seating. So that, like, our VIP theaters and our 4DX experiences and our IMAX were assigned seats.
Right? Okay, so I'm wondering how that experience is now. If, like, you have to get assigned seatings for the ones that didn't have assigned seating.
Which is
before.
easy because all the seats had numbers on them anyway.
Right, because the theater I didn't like, because we went to we actually had to pick our seats when we bought our tickets at the theater that you and I went to.
Oh, okay.
Because remember she asked us where we wanted to sit, so I picked the seats for us. And the other theater, the one that I go to, like the super cheap $5 matinees, the Rave Cinema in Flint, that one doesn't have assigned seating. You just walk in and sit. So I'm
I think
wondering
how
how
they're
that will
doing
happen.
that, because there's a smaller theater that does that here, is the usher walks you in
Okay,
and they decide where you sit.
gotcha.
They give you
Okay.
an option.
That makes sense then. Okay, because I was kind of wondering how they would do that. Like, because I mean, obviously they don't have the computer system to
No.
be able to pick your seats and stuff like that in those theaters.
So whoever, they would have one person probably on the concessions and then one person that would walk you and assign you to sit.
That
Or if there's no one in the theater, that's an easy solution. Right?
Yeah, and usually with the matinees on the weekend for horror films, for me at that theater, I would be like one of two people in that theater.
Yeah, you look like a nice creeper, like American Werewolf. That's probably the theater you go to. It's a porno theater, isn't it? You just don't want to tell everybody. You're like,
Our
that's
little
me, living my best life.
Oh, that historic Howell Theater I keep talking about, that's what they play
I-
mostly.
Well, that's not true. I was there with you and we saw
No.
Gremlins, which I would have preferred a porno, but that's
Hey,
neither
hey,
there,
hey, now.
neither here nor there. So anyway, I'm just look at this. He's trying to glare at me. That's really funny. Yeah, you're not scary, like at all, like at all. But that's okay. You are who you are. So we do have a topic for our next show. Why don't you tell the good people what our next topic will be?
So our next topic is going to be diving into relationship issues in horror films. And there's a reason behind this, but I am going to save that wonderful tidbit for our episode.
Yes, I'm very excited for this. It's been a while since I think you've chosen a topic.
I did the shark one.
Yeah, you did the yeah, that's true. I think we both kind of talked about that one though. But this is one that is more near and dear to your heart.
Yep,
Like,
'cause
I feel
obviously.
you're going to be the one to tell me which films we're going to be reviewing. Well,
Yes,
not reviewing, but using as our example base of where this stuff has been used well.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because obviously as I've started to learn about myself, I do love these films that really deal with like issues in relationships or just building relationships. So like, and then just, well, being the single guy dating scene, got plenty of stories to go along with this now. So it's going to be an interesting topic for sure. Like, and gonna have some interesting movies to discuss. I have a feeling.
I like how you're using the word interesting a lot. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, to say the least.
Very eye-opening. I'm going to have some strong opinions on some subjects, on how I feel.
Yeah, let's just say we'll be peeling back a little bit more of the layers of Smoke Show Crawford as this episode comes out.
Which is funny because you really are more tight-lipped than I am. Like,
yeah, like I'm open about certain things, but
yes, you like in our rape episode, you shared some stories that were pretty intimate that had happened to you that people had commented on about how much more of Scott's sexual history will we get to learn about.
right.
But I don't know how much you really share. Like, I feel like people kind of see me as a sex crazed drinker, partier, fun girl, politically minded, angry about everything, dog loving, Kate Spade wearing, horror chick. That has like good enough knowledge. Like, you know, when that all these girls and ladies, like all my horror ladies were sharing that meme of when she blows your mind or with her horror knowledge.
Yeah.
I could never share that. People heard how I did on trivia. They'd be like, what knowledge? And then you don't know anything.
Great.
Brandon would be like, take that fucking shit down right now, Heather. You're a liar. Well, I feel like I'm an open book. You are not, in comparison.
No, like people know me as the sex symbol.
That's right, of our show. For sure.
No, people just know that I am very open, but it usually has to. I won't talk about things freely. It usually ends up going along with whatever the theme is of our show. We'll bring up something that I'll be open about. But yep, like it's kind of like the slow peeling back of an onion. You're just getting more and more layers. Like, not trying to say I'm like so deep and intriguing or anything. I'm just saying, like,
well, you are in comparison. I feel like I'm just like this really boring open book that there's nothing exciting after a while. You, on the other hand, there's like a new adventure around every corner.
Well, I was saying, like, there's just some certain things that just kind of, I don't really feel comfortable talking about, but then, like, will come up, and I have no problem talking about them, but it's just not something I'm just openly wanting to give out. But, like, that will change with the next episode. There'll be a lot of things that I will be talking about.
Bottom line is, Scott's had enough.
Scott
and he's done with fucking around. And he's coming, guns a-blazing. Pew, 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 pew.
Kerpow! The gun show is open, baby.
He is going to be calling some people out. Well, probably not by name, but he will be calling some behaviors out.
Yes, I will.
Right? It's going to be interesting times. So stay tuned as the Friday Nightmares podcast explores this relationship territory. Happy back to school time. Welcome back from your vacation, Scott. And we will be back to our regular scheduled program. And I realized I said I was going to be on all these guest spots. None of them happened. At all, partly due to some family issues in one, and then only because this one gentleman's been very open about it. Gary Hill and his sister suffered a very devastating fire, and luckily they are both okay, but unfortunately they lost some animals in the process. And
lost
Gary,
his entire collection, lost everything in their home.
Yeah,
it was devastating to me when I seen that.
Devastating. And Gary is probably one of the nicest human beings on this planet. And Scott and I are happy that we could support you, Gary.
We love you, Gary.
As you continue to rebuild. And so unfortunately, I was supposed to be on Cinema Beef. I will not be on Cinema Beef for a little while till Gary obviously comes back and is ready. So whenever that may be, I'm happy to join Gary. Lots of love to you, my friend. And and you can catch us on It's Not Horror. We'll be back to our regular scheduled program in September.
On a new network.
On a new network, on the Dark Discussions Network. And also we did do, I did a walkthrough of The Rental.
Yes, you and I both did.
Yes, so we did
No More
do
Than
that
Hell.
before you left on your vacation.
And that was on Fresh Cuts.
On Fresh Cuts. And I think that's the last thing. I haven't podcasted since then.
Yeah, same here. This is the first time back. Yeah.
Right? So it was a nice little break, but just like any addict, we're glad to be back at it. So
Yep, we fell off the wagon again, people. We're back.
We fell off the wagon. So true. Scott fell off the wagon last night with the fucking keg of beer he drank to himself.
Oh my god.
But yeah, you know what? I shouldn't judge too much. A couple of weeks ago, I went out and bought tequila shots at 37.
That's
for my
true.
birthday on a Sunday night. So pot to kettle, Heather. Don't be judging Mr. Crawford too much.
You should just be more proud of me.
I am overwhelmingly proud of you, Scott. Nothing makes me happier than you destroying your liver.
Oh, you're so sweet.
So I guess unless you have anything else to add, yes, no?
No, just happy to be back after this couple of week hiatus, and it'll be fun to see what we got going on because we got some guest spots lined up for our show.
No, that's
that
right.
We're going to eventually be bringing people on, so that'll be fun as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they can't wait to work with us. It's going to be the best time of their lives for sure.
Oh, you know it.
Oh my God, living your best life right here. Well, in the meantime, we look forward to seeing you next time, and unpleasant dreams.
Unpleasant dreams. Pound and Powell.
I just said that.